Chapter 781. The ugly Manjuawan's departure caused many people in the square to discuss. From Emperor Qing's attitude and Zhuowen's words, they faintly guessed that the truth was probably not as Huangfu Wudao had said. There were even many people who revealed thoughtful expressions as they gradually realized that the truth from before was probably not simple. However, since Emperor Qing had spoken, no one had any objections. Although the final outcome of the battle between Zhuowen and Huangfu Wudao had not been decided, Zhuowen's brilliant performance was deeply imprinted in everyone's minds. Originally, everyone thought that Huangfu Wudao would be able to deal with Zhuowen in a straightforward manner when he appeared in a domineering and merciless manner. However, the final outcome was far beyond everyone's expectations. Not only was Zhuowen not dealt with by Huangfu Wudao, but Huangfu Wudao was put into a rather sorry state by Zhuowen instead. Everyone knew that Zhuowen's true combat strength was actually not inferior to Huangfu Wudao, so many people were extremely looking forward to the battle between Zhuowen and Huangfu Wudao in 3 days. They all knew that the battle in 3 days would absolutely be extremely exciting. In the square, Huangfu Wudao returned to Emperor Qing's side with a gloomy expression and remained silent. He had suffered such a great loss at the hands of Zhuowen today, and he was practically gnashing his teeth. At the same time, he was shocked by Zhuowen's strength. Wudao, return to the throne room first. Use these 3 days to recuperate properly. Emperor Qing glanced indifferently at Huangfu Wudao. Yes. Huangfu Wudao cupped his hands and followed Emperor Qing into the throne room, and they quickly disappeared from everyone's sight. Following Emperor Qing's departure, the others in the square naturally had no reason to stay and dispersed one after another. Grand Haohai was also preparing to leave the square with Grand Lily, but he noticed that his daughter was actually standing blankly on the spot. Lily, what are you thinking about? Grand Haohai suddenly asked. Grand Lily returned to her senses and sighed lightly. Father, Zhuowen's growth is too fast. Even Huangfu Wudao is unable to do anything to him now. Was it wrong for us to suppress him back then? Hearing this, Grand Haohai was stunned, then he smiled and said, By her, could it be that you regret it? Do you regret breaking off the engagement? Grand Lily was stunned when she heard this. Her beautiful eyes flickered. She was originally a proud daughter of the Grand Clan and was a monstrous genius ranked in the top 10 of the Azure Emperor rankings. Back then, she thought highly of herself and naturally looked down on Zhuowen, who came from a small clan. The other half that she, Grand Lily, worshipped was naturally a powerful and peerless genius. Within the Qing-Xian Empire, only Huangfu Wudao could fulfill this condition. It was just that Huangfu Wudao had been hiding in the imperial family all year round, so Grand Lily didn't have many opportunities to see Huangfu Wudao. However, she actually admired Huangfu Wudao's strength. But now, not only had the disciple of a small clan that she had looked down on previously defeated her, even Huangfu Wudao, whom she worshipped, had been defeated. All of this caused her heart to become chaotic. She did indeed have a trace of regret in her heart. If their Grand Clan hadn't been so ruthless back then, perhaps their relationship with Zhuowen wouldn't be so bad now, to the point where it would only end with one side dead. However, Grand Haohai patted Grand Lily's shoulder with a wisp of wisdom in his eyes and said, By her, it has already happened, so there's no use regretting it. This Zhuowen is a great threat, and he has a life and death enmity with our Grand Clan. So what we should do now isn't regret, but think of a way to kill Zhuowen. Grand Lily's beautiful eyes flickered when she heard this. She nodded and said, I understand, but it's already very difficult to kill this Zhuowen now. Back then, you joined forces with the Cow and Foam clans, but you still couldn't kill him. Now, this Zhuowen's strength isn't inferior to the first prince, so it's too difficult to kill him. Grand Lily was clearly aware of how strong Zhuowen was now. The cultivators of the Xuanzuan realm were nothing before Zhuowen. Perhaps only an expert at the sovereign stage or above would be effective. That's right. If we rely on our Grand Clan now, it's indeed very difficult to kill this Zhuowen. After all, this lad has Lu Hantian by his side constantly protecting him. However, have you forgotten that this lad is Zhuo Xiaotian's son? The Blue Dragon Hall should be interested in him. At this point, the smile on Grand Haohai's face grew even wider. So what if he's Zhuo Xiaotian's son? After all, "Father, you've already checked that this lad doesn't have a dragon soul, and without a dragon soul, he naturally won't attract the blue dragon hall's interest." Grand Lily naturally knew that Zhuowen was Zhuo Xiaotian's son, and she was also very clear about Zhuo Xiaotian's past deeds. However, Grand Haohai had already confirmed that Zhuowen only had a useless armor soul, and didn't have a dragon soul. Just based on the fact that Zhuowen was Zhuo Xiaotian's son, he probably wouldn't attract the blue dragon hall's attention. Hee. I'm afraid I've made a mistake back then. After all, this lad's speed of improvement is too strange. It's extremely similar to Zhuo Xiaotian's back then, so I can't help but be suspicious now. At this point, Grand Haohai looked around. Seeing that no one was paying attention to them, he continued to whisper to Grand Lily, "Come with father first. There's someone who can verify whether this Zhuowen has a dragon soul or not." With that, Grand Haohai waved his sleeve and brought Grand Lily away from the plaza. In the northeast corner of the imperial city, there was a dilapidated temple. The surroundings of the temple were desolate, overgrown with weeds, and sparsely populated. Whoosh, whoosh. Two figures flew over and stopped outside the temple. It was Grand Haohai and Grand Lily. Grand Lily's beautiful eyes were filled with doubt. She didn't understand why Grand Haohai brought her here. Perhaps he noticed the doubt on Grand Lily's face. Grand Haohai smiled and explained, "Father said that I'll bring you to see someone. This person is the key to proving whether Zhuowen has a armor soul or not." With that, Grand Haohai brought Grand Lily into the temple. Passing through the messy courtyard, the two of them entered the main entrance of the temple. Inside the main entrance was a narrow space. A stone statue with a blurry face was sitting on a high platform, facing the main entrance. Entering the temple, Grand Lily furrowed her brows. This temple was too messy. Dust was piled up inside, cobwebs were everywhere, and there was even a strange smell in the air. Not to mention Grand Lily, even a normal man's face wouldn't be any better if he entered this messy temple for the first time. Grand Haohai didn't feel anything about this. Instead, he looked around and said loudly, "Come out. I know you're in the temple." After waiting for a while, the temple was still silent. There was no reply. It was so quiet that it was terrifying. "Didn't you want to deal with Zhuowen? Didn't you want to kill Lu Hantian? If you don't show yourself, you'll lose this opportunity forever." Grand Haohai wasn't in a hurry. Instead, he slowly spoke again. He had a good understanding of the people in the temple. He didn't believe that the person wouldn't come out. Boom! An explosive sound rang out, and the blurry stone statue exploded into countless pieces. From the stone statue, a figure with ragged clothes, a stooped figure, and a blurry face suddenly rushed out. This person's face was extremely ugly. When Grand Lily saw this person's face for the first time, she couldn't help but jump in fright. Fortunately, her will was firm, and she quickly recovered her composure. Moreover, this person's right hand was empty. He was actually a one-armed person. For some reason, he had lost an arm. "What did you just say? You can kill Lu Hantian and Zhuowen?" As soon as this person came out, he hurriedly came in front of Grand Haohai and shouted with an excited expression. His entire body couldn't help but tremble. Looking at the trembling figure in front of him, Grand Haohai frowned and said indifferently, "Lu Hantian is an Empyrean realm powerhouse. It's a bit difficult to kill him, but it's much easier to kill Zhuowen." Hearing this, the person slowly calmed down and frowned. "Lu Hantian can't be killed? How can an Empyrean realm powerhouse be so easy to kill? After all, the nascent soul of an Empyrean realm powerhouse is already very tough. Even if the body collapses, the nascent soul can leave the body and even survive for a long time. If luck is good, it can even rebuild the body." Speaking up to here, Grand Haohai coldly snorted. His target was only Zhuowen. As for Lu Hantian, it was simply impossible to kill him. Unless Emperor Qing personally took action, but that was basically impossible. Hearing this, the person's expression relaxed. What Grand Haohai said was right. Lu Hantian was in existence at the peak of the Empyrean realm. It was undoubtedly unrealistic to want to kill such a powerhouse. Of course, if they could join forces with dozens of Empyrean realm powerhouses, they might be able to take Lu Hantian's life. But was that possible? In the entire Qing Xian Empire, there were probably no more than 2 digits of Empyrean realm powerhouses. Where could they find dozens of Empyrean realm powerhouses? The ugly person also knew that it was unrealistic to want to kill Lu Hantian. He gritted his teeth and said, "It's fine if you can kill Zhuowen. Tell me, what do you want me to do to kill Zhuowen? Didn't you say to me back then that Zhuowen once revealed the dragon soul? If what you said is true, this Zhuowen will undoubtedly die. Of course, if it's false, the one who will die is you." Grand Haohai's eyes flickered as he said, "Humph. Don't worry, that Zhuowen definitely has the dragon soul. I saw it with my own eyes back then. It's absolutely not false." The ugly person snorted coldly. When these words came out, Grand Haohai couldn't help but be moved. She finally understood why Zhuowen's progress was so fast. Moreover, it was unbelievably fast. It turned out that there was a legendary dragon soul in Zhuowen's body. Moreover, judging from Zhuowen's potential and talent, the dragon soul that he possessed was probably of a higher grade than that of Qing Yang. Hee. If it's true, that's the best. Follow us to a place first. If what you said is true, you don't need to do anything. Someone will take care of Zhuowen. Grand Haohai said indifferently. Where are we going? The ugly person asked with some vigilance. The Imperial Capital's Azure Dragon Subpalace. Chapter 782. The nature of the immovable wisdom king. The dark night slowly descended. Dark clouds covered the night sky and not a single star could be seen. It looked rather eerie and cold. There was a small hill behind the Drunken Spring Pavilion that was covered in dense forests and sparsely populated. At this moment, a figure was silently sitting cross-legged on a huge rock on the hill. This person was not very old, about 20 years old. He had a delicate face and carried a strange bronze coffin on his back. Zhuowen raised his head slightly and quietly stared at the dark night sky with a thoughtful look in his eyes. Whoosh! A wisp of ink-black light emerged from between his eyebrows and revealed the appearance of Xiao He. "Boy, you've been sitting here for 12 hours. It's already midnight. What are you thinking about?" Xiao He stared at Zhuowen in astonishment. "I'm just thinking about how I can increase my combat strength in these short 3 days." Zhuowen turned around and looked at Xiao He, shaking his head as he spoke. Zhuowen knew very well that the Qing Emperor was biased towards Huangfu Wudao in today's battle. It was obvious that the Qing Emperor was determined to give the Heavenly Marquis token to Huangfu Wudao. Moreover, the Qing Emperor would definitely give Huangfu Wudao many trump cards in these 3 days, greatly increasing his chances of victory. This was what Zhuowen was worried about. If his strength did not improve in these 3 days, he would undoubtedly be at a disadvantage when facing Huangfu Wudao. After all, Huangfu Wudao was backed by the strongest person in the Qing Xian Empire, the Qing Emperor. Yes, the Qing Emperor is biased towards Huangfu Wudao, but this is also reasonable. Huangfu Wudao is the first prince of the imperial family and the representative of the imperial family. If even the representative of the imperial family is defeated by you, the dignity of the imperial family will undoubtedly be greatly affected. If I were the Qing Emperor, I would definitely let Huangfu Wudao win. There is no other reason than that Huangfu Wudao is the first prince of the imperial family. Xiao He slowly landed on Zhuowen's shoulder. Her pitch-black eyes darted around as she spoke calmly. Hearing this, Zhuowen nodded. Although he was aware of Emperor Qing's actions, such favoritism still made him feel uncomfortable. He knew that if today's battle continued, he, Zhuowen, would have a very high chance of winning. However, the Azure the Arch had delayed the battle by 3 days, and he was even labeled as the one who had launched a sneak attack. With Emperor Qing's presence, Huangfu Wudao's injuries would definitely be completely healed in 3 days. Emperor Qing might even help him increase his cultivation. What made Zhuowen even more fearful was that if the Qing Emperor gave Huangfu Wudao a powerful spiritual treasure, then Zhuowen's chances of winning would really become extremely low. Therefore, what Zhuowen was thinking about now was how to increase his cultivation to the greatest extent in these 3 days so that he could deal with the competition 3 days later. Xiao He revealed a thoughtful expression. Zhuowen was right. Huangfu Wudao would probably become even stronger under Emperor Qing's guidance in 3 days. Although Zhuowen's strength was not weak now, it was actually about the same as Huangfu Wudao. Today's battle was mainly because he took the initiative and injured Huangfu Wudao, so he had the confidence to win. If the two of them fought again, Zhuowen would not be so confident. Moreover, Emperor Qing might give Huangfu Wudao some trump cards in these 3 days. Then, Zhuowen's confidence would be even lower. Therefore, Zhuowen had to increase his strength in these 3 days. Boy, it's really difficult to increase your strength in these 3 days. Xiao He shook his head. Hearing Xiao He's words, Zhuowen's eyes were filled with disappointment. Even Xiao He said so. It seemed that 3 days was really too short. Is there really no other way? Zhuowen frowned slightly and said somewhat unwillingly. Just as Zhuowen was deeply worried, the bronze coffin behind him suddenly opened halfway, and a pair of strange blood eyes appeared behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen, don't you have the Nirvana Mahavirokana technique on you? This Nirvana Mahavirokana technique can be improved again in a short period of time. A hoarse voice slowly came from the bronze coffin. It was the voice of the blood demon. Hey! The blood demon sealed in the demon-suppressing green coffin is actually still conscious. Looks like you, little blood demon, are not simple. Xiao He looked at the blood eyes on the green coffin in astonishment and clicked his tongue in wonder. When the blood demon had awakened in the demon-suppressing green coffin, Xiao He was still in a deep sleep, so he did not know about the blood demon. Now, he naturally revealed a puzzled expression. You are. The pair of blood eyes suddenly looked at Xiao He. The indifferent blood eyes revealed a rare trace of shock, as if they had seen something extremely fearful. Hee. This Dragon Lord's identity is not something a little blood demon like you can know. Xiao He's gaze was indifferent, as if he did not really want to talk about his background. However, this also made Zhuowen even more puzzled. Xiao He actually called the blood demon a little blood demon. It was very obvious that Xiao He did not take the blood demon, a terrifying ancient saint-level life form, to heart. Moreover, from the blood demon's expression, it could be seen that Xiao He's identity was not simple. Although he was extremely curious about Xiao He's identity, Xiao He clearly did not want to talk too much about it. Therefore, Zhuowen was very smart and did not ask too much. You said that the Nirvana Mahavirokana still has room for improvement, and that it can be improved in a short period of time. Is that true? Zhuowen's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a trace of astonishment on his face. The Nirvana Mahavirokana was divided into 5 levels, which were Nirvana, Annihilation, Nirvana, Dharma, and Immortality. Now, Zhuowen had already cultivated it to the 4th level, Dharma, and could transform into an immovable deity, giving birth to 4 heads and 8 arms. If he wanted to improve further, he would probably only be able to reach the 5th level, Immortality. However, that was the final level of the Nirvana Mahavirokana, and it was extremely difficult to reach that level. Zhuowen did not believe that he could make another breakthrough within 3 days. Perhaps sensing the doubt on Zhuowen's face, the blood demon said indifferently, "You don't understand how terrifying the Nirvana Mahavirokana is. Furthermore, you have never unleashed the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana." True power? Hearing the blood demon's words, Zhuowen frowned. The blood demon actually said that he had not unleashed the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana. Could it be that there were other secrets in the Nirvana Mahavirokana? You obtained the Nirvana Mahavirokana from the Yuan Qi Tower. However, do you know who created the Nirvana Mahavirokana? The blood demon suddenly asked. Who is it? Zhuowen looked interested. The founder of Buddhism in the Zhejiang prefecture, Bodhidharma, was an existence that countless stinky monks in the Zhejiang prefecture had conferred as a god. Bodhidharma's strength was terrifying, and his cultivation had reached the Buddha ancestor realm. Even the current Emperor Qing was nothing in front of Bodhidharma. At this point, Zhuowen's face was filled with shock. The #1 powerhouse in the Qingxian Empire, the Emperor Qing, was nothing in front of Bodhidharma. Bodhidharma was actually so terrifying. At the same time, Zhuowen recalled that the Nirvana Mahavirokana had been carved on a golden skeleton. This made Zhuowen suspect that the owner of the golden skeleton had to be Bodhidharma. Then tell me, How should I unleash the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana? After hearing the blood demon's words, Zhuowen finally believed him. What he was concerned about now was how to unleash the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana. The blood demon said unhurriedly, "The Nirvana Mahavirokana was created according to the Akalanatha, one of the 5 wisdom kings of Buddhism. You have seen it for yourself. As you continue to cultivate, you will eventually be able to transform into the Akalanatha Dharma body, and your physical body will be very strong." Zhuowen nodded. The Nirvana Mahavirokana's tempering of the physical body was indeed extremely terrifying. This was something that Zhuowen had personally experienced. However, you have overlooked something. That is the essence of the Akalanatha. The blood demon suddenly paused. The essence of the Akalanatha? Zhuowen asked curiously. Zhuowen really didn't know much about the Akalanatha. He only knew that the Akalanatha was a god of Buddhism. The Akalanatha is the Dharma body of all Buddhism. Hence, he is also known as the King of Wisdom Kings. He is the leader of the 5 Wisdom Kings. He is the Wisdom King who subdues all demons in the form of anger. His body changes to those who are stubborn, obsessed, and shrouded by demons. He uses his voice to wake them up and scare them away. At the end of the day, the Akalanatha is the embodiment of anger. Anger is also very easy to understand. It is a kind of emotional flame. It is a kind of anger that comes from the inside out. If you want to unleash the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana, then you need to use a powerful flame to completely ignite the anger of the Akalanatha Dharma body. That's my understanding. It all depends on what you think. Alright, that's all I have to say. Everything depends on your own understanding. As he spoke, the blood demon's voice slowly weakened and finally disappeared into the bronze coffin. With a creak, the green coffin closed. Zhuowen slowly stood up, his eyes flashing. The blood demon's words were very clear. If he wanted to unleash the true power of the Nirvana Mahavirokana, then he had to ignite the true anger of the Akalanatha. And the only way to ignite the anger of the Akalanatha was to use a powerful flame to ignite the potential of the Akalanatha Dharma body from the outside. I understand. Muttering to himself, Zhuowen stomped his feet and immediately unleashed the 4th level of the Nirvana Mahavirokana. He transformed into a 4-headed, 8-armed figure. A dazzling golden light flashed around his body. 7 types of earth fire, come out. Stomping his feet again, 7 types of terrifying earth fire burst out from Zhuowen's body and surrounded his body, burning fiercely. Kid, you didn't really listen to the blood demon's words, did you? You actually intend to use the earth fire to torture yourself. Looking at Zhuowen, who had summoned 7 types of earth fire, Xiao Hei held its forehead with its right paw. It looked as if it had expected better from Zhuowen. Obviously, it did not believe the blood demon's words at all. I think the blood demon's words make sense. His eyes flashing, Zhuowen clasped his hands together and let out a low roar. Instantly, the 7 types of earth fire enveloped Zhuowen's body. It burned fiercely and continuously tempered Zhuowen's body. Chapter 783. Snitch Sizzle. Very quickly, Zhuowen's entire body was charred black by the blazing flames. Black scabs formed on the surface of his body, making him look exceptionally hideous. Xiao Hei frowned when she saw Zhuowen's appearance. The power of the 7 types of earth fires was extremely terrifying. Furthermore, Zhuowen had not taken any defensive measures and had directly come into contact with the 7 types of earth fires. Although Zhuowen's physical body was extremely strong and he had cultivated the great nirvana art to the 4th level, it was still extremely dangerous for him to directly come into contact with the earth fires. Furthermore, it was 7 types of earth fires. It's not good if this goes on. How can this brat listen to the blood demon's nonsense? He actually used his physical body to directly come into contact with the 7 types of earth fires. Isn't he courting death? Xiao Hei frowned when she saw Zhuowen surrounded by the flames. Her eyes were filled with worry. No. If this goes on, this brat will be finished. We have to stop him. Just as Xiao Hei was about to step forward to stop Zhuowen, a golden glow suddenly shot out from Zhuowen's charred body. The blazing golden glow shot out and was so dazzling that Xiao Hei could not open her eyes. Crack! A crisp sound rang out. The charred body of Zhuowen, who was sitting cross-legged in the middle of the 7 types of earth fires, peeled off layer by layer. Finally, it turned into a golden figure. What shocked Xiao Hei the most was that as the golden glow continued to burn, the golden figure's body continued to grow taller, as if it was rising from the ground. 30 feet. 50 feet. 70 feet. 10 feet. At this moment, Zhuowen's body was as tall as a mountain, vast and terrifying. I finally know the true essence of Great Sun Nirvana, haha. With his 10 feet tall body, Zhuowen stood tall as he laughed heartily towards the sky. The blood demon was right. All along, he had not unleashed the true might of the Great Nirvana Sunday. Nirvana was actually a rebirth from the ashes. Only by bathing in the flames would the full might of the Nirvana of the Great Sun be revealed. Now, Zhuowen's body had grown from 30 feet to 30 feet. Not only had his body grown, but his strength had also grown at an exponential rate. Zhuowen could feel that the power in his body was almost limitless. It was more than 3 times stronger than before. I can still improve. Again, fuse the 7 types of earth fire for me. Zhuowen laughed. He knew that the stronger the flame, the greater the potential of the Great Sun Nirvana. Therefore, he didn't hesitate to use the fire fusion art. Instantly, the 7 types of earth fires gathered together and finally turned into an extremely huge 7-colored fire phoenix. Swoosh! Once the fire phoenix appeared, it let out a loud phoenix cry. Soon after, it spread its wings and flew high. In an instant, it wrapped Zhuowen in the 7-colored flames. Sizzle, sizzle, sizzle. The sound of something burning rang out again. Zhuowen's 10-jong-tall body actually emitted an even more dazzling golden light under the burning of the 7-colored flames. Then, under this golden light, his body grew taller and taller. 10 feet. 20 feet. 50 feet. 70 feet. 100 feet. When Zhuowen's height reached 100 feet, the golden glow slowly faded away. The 100 feet tall body stood between the heavens and the earth, looking extremely tall and mighty. At the same time, a terrifying pressure spread out from the 100 feet tall body, causing the small hill under Zhuowen's feet to tremble. It was as if it was afraid of the huge body of Zhuowen. On the hill, Xiao Hei looked up at Zhuowen, who was now 1,000 feet tall, with 4 heads and 8 arms. A tinge of shock appeared in her eyes. This Great Nirvana Sun is really magical. It actually has such a magical effect. Nirvana rebirth. It can actually increase one's body from 3 feet to 100 feet. This strength is more than 10 times stronger than before. Xiao Hei muttered softly. She could feel that the power contained in Zhuowen's body was far stronger than before. If Zhuowen's combat strength was comparable to the top warriors of the Xuanzuan realm before, then the current Zhuowen had probably surpassed the warriors of the Xuanzuan realm and was comparable to the sovereign realm. The Great Nirvana Sun was indeed very magical. Just by tempering the body, it could actually increase Zhuowen's combat strength by so much. After all, Zhuowen's cultivation was only half a step into the Xuanzuan realm. After using the Great Nirvana Sun, his combat strength increased by so much that it was comparable to the sovereign realm. It was indeed extremely abnormal. Zhuowen slowly stretched his arms, revealing a faint smile at the corner of his mouth. The Great Nirvana Sun gave him an endless stream of surprises. The battle prowess of this 300-meter body was extremely terrifying, and it was dozens of times stronger than before. If he encountered Huangfu Wudao again 3 days later, even if the latter had some trump cards given to him by Emperor Qing, Zhuowen basically had nothing to fear. Nodding with satisfaction, Zhuowen's body slowly shrunk from 100 feet to his original size. He was no different from an ordinary person. Whoosh! A black shadow flashed by, and Xiao Hei directly stood on Zhuowen's shoulder. She looked at Zhuowen cautiously and said, "It seems that the blood demon really didn't lie. Your Great Nirvana Sun is indeed extraordinary." At this moment, Zhuowen was in an extremely good mood. The breakthrough of the Great Nirvana Sun had increased his strength by more than 10 times. He was not afraid of the battle 3 days later. Yes. Let's go back first. This Great Nirvana Sun is really broad and profound. There are still 3 days left. I can study it properly. With a smile at the corner of his mouth, Zhuoan took a step and disappeared into the hills. Under the night sky, in the northeast of the imperial capital, there was an extremely majestic hall. The shape of this hall was like a coiling dragon, and it had a magnificent aura. At the front of the hall stood a huge stone tablet. On the surface of the stone tablet, there were 3 large words: Blue Dragon Hall. This was where the Azure Dragon Hall of the imperial capital was located. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. 3 figures arrived in an instant and slowly landed in the sky above the Blue Dragon Hall. One of the 3 was a tall and sturdy middle-aged man with an imposing appearance. He was the Grand Family's patriarch, Grand Haohai. Standing beside Grand Haohai was the beautiful and graceful Grand Lily. Behind the 2 of them, there was a cautious figure. This person's clothes were ragged, and he had greasy hair and a dirty face. His appearance was extremely ugly, and he looked neither like a human nor a ghost. Anyone who looked at him would lose their appetite. "Follow us in." Grand Haohai turned his head to look at the figure behind him and said unhurriedly. Then, he landed in front of the Blue Dragon Hall's entrance. The figure's eyes flickered. He gritted his teeth and followed behind Grand Haohai. "Stop. Who are the 3 of you? Why have you come to my Blue Dragon Hall?" At the entrance of the Blue Dragon Hall, there were 2 warriors in green armor. At this moment, the 2 warriors in green armor were holding green spears and pointing at Grand Haohai and the other 2. Their eyes were full of vigilance and hostility. "Please don't misunderstand. I'm Grand Haohai from the Grand Family. I have an important matter to discuss with Prince Aroki. I hope the 2 of you can make an exception," Grand Haohai said lightly. When the 2 soldiers heard this, they were shocked. They naturally knew Grand Haohai. He was the patriarch of the Grand Family, one of the 5 major families. Although the Grand Family's power was far inferior to the Azure Dragon subsidiary temple, it was well known in the imperial city. Now, the person in front of them was the patriarch of the Grand Family. Such a person was not someone that the 2 little soldiers could afford to offend. "Since it's the patriarch of the Grand Family, it's fine. It's just that we have to follow the procedure. We have to report first before we can let the 3 of you in. I wonder if the patriarch of the Grand Family has any opinion on this." One of the warriors in green armor answered cautiously. The patriarch of the Grand Family was not an existence that he could neglect. "Go ahead and report. I can wait outside for a while," Grand Haohai nodded and said. The warrior in green armor heaved a sigh of relief. He cupped his hands slightly and entered the Blue Dragon Hall. After a while, the warrior came out again and said to Grand Haohai, "The palace master allows the 3 of you to enter the hall." Hearing this, Grand Haohai was not surprised. After all, he was the patriarch of the Grand Family. Aroki would still give him face. After entering the Blue Dragon Hall, Grand Haohai quickly led Grand Lily and the figure into the deepest part of the hall. It was an extremely spacious hall. There were huge stone pillars around it. On top of the stone pillars, there were countless fist-sized luminous pearls, illuminating the dim hall as if it was daytime. At the end of the hall, there was a huge throne. At this moment, Aroki, who was dressed in a green robe, was sitting leisurely on the throne. There was a smile on his face as he looked down at Grand Haohai and the other 2 below. Standing beside the throne was Qing Yang, who was wearing a green dragon mask. At this moment, he was standing aside expressionlessly. He did not even look at Grand Haohai and the others. Since Qing Yang was completely defeated by Zhuoan in the Marquis battle, he had become taciturn and eccentric. "I wonder why the patriarch of the Grand Family has come to visit so late at night." Aroki leaned against the throne and said lazily. Grand Haohai smiled and said, "Prince Aroki, the news I brought this time will definitely excite you." Hearing this, Aoki's eyes suddenly showed a trace of interest. Since Grand Haohai said this, it meant that the news from the former was definitely not ordinary. "Tell me about it." Aroki nodded and said with interest. "I wonder if Greenwood Palace Master is interested in the descendant of the Long family." Grand Haohai touched the back of his hand and asked unhurriedly. Aoki's eyes narrowed and his face suddenly became serious. "Oh, does the Grand Family know the whereabouts of the Riker descendants?" "Haha. Not only do I know, but I also know that this Riker descendant has awakened a dragon soul, and the quality of the dragon soul is not low. At this point, Grand Hauhai stopped talking and looked quietly at Orochi. A Rika descendant who has awakened a dragon soul? Where is it? Chapter 784. The four great azure dragon guards. For many years, the Blue Dragon Hall had been searching for Rika descendants. Once they found any Rika descendants, they would kill them without mercy. The main reason why the Azure Dragon Hall did this was because 10,000 years ago, the Azure Dragon Hall took advantage of the fact that the Long family's experts were resisting the calamity to launch a sneak attack on the Long family's headquarters, causing the Long family to be completely destroyed. It could be said that the Rika and the Blue Dragon Hall had a 10,000-year feud. Once they met, they would not rest until one of them was dead. It was the Blue Dragon Hall's sneak attack that caused the Rika to decline. In addition, the Blue Dragon Hall had been hunting down the Rika descendants for many years, causing the Rika descendants to become increasingly rare. They had almost disappeared from everyone's sight. Orochi was the hall master of the Azure Xian Empire's branch. Although it was located in a remote area and had little contact with the Azure Dragon main hall, he still knew a lot of secrets about the Rika. He knew that if he caught the Long family's descendant, it would be a great contribution to their sub-palace. He might even be promoted by the main palace and directly enter the main palace. To the Azure Dragon branch halls that were spread across the eastern lands, being able to enter the main hall was a great honor. Even a branch hall master like Orochi yearned to enter the main hall. Unfortunately, the main hall only accepted those who were talented and had dragon souls of the 3rd grade and above. Even the powerful branch hall masters did not have the qualifications to enter the main hall. Of course, if the branch hall members made a great contribution to the main hall, they would also be given the opportunity to enter the main hall and be rewarded handsomely. The Rika descendants had been the target of the Blue Dragon Hall for many years. If he could really capture the Rika descendants and offer them to the main hall, then he, Orochi, would have made a great contribution. This was also why Grand Hauhai's calm face revealed a look of ecstasy when he mentioned the location of the Rika descendants. Grand Hauhai's ability to read people's expressions was extremely experienced. With a single glance, he saw the pleasant surprise in Ching Mu's eyes, and the corners of his mouth could not help but reveal a brilliant smile. Patriarch Grant, if you can really provide me with clues about the Rika descendants, the Blue Dragon Hall will not mistreat you. Orochi Grant Hauhai's patriarch, and he Grant even has a dragon soul. Orochi's pupils shrank, Lord Palace and he Master, frowned. You know the Long family's descendant. How can you prove that this old man is a Rika descendant? Grant Hauhai and that he has a dragon soul. And Grant Hauhai Prince Orochi. Grant, do you still remember the Long Xiaotian from 20 years ago? Grant Hauhai didn't answer Orochi's question directly. He's a descendant of the Rika. Instead, and he has asked a question of his own. Grand Hauhai laughed sinisterly. Of course I know about Long Xiaotian. Back then, this guy caused a huge ruckus in the imperial city. If it wasn't for Emperor Qing, I'm afraid that not many people would be able to deal with that demon. Orochi nodded. The smile on Grant Hauhai's face became even brighter, and he continued, to tell you the truth, Long Xiaotian had a real name back then. He was a member of the Zhuo family. What? He's actually a member of the Zhuo family? Could it be that this Zhuoan is related to the Long Xiaotian? Orochi's eyes flashed. Haha. Prince Orochi is indeed smart. That Zhuoan is Long Xiaotian's son. Prince Orochi shouldn't be suspicious now. As for whether or not Zhuoan has a dragon soul, the person behind me can testify. At this point, Grant Hauhai stepped aside, revealing the hideous man behind him who was neither human nor ghost. At this moment, the hideous man had a timid look on his face. He had heard a lot about the Blue Dragon Hall, so he was naturally afraid. Looking at the hideous man behind Grant Hauhai, Orochi frowned and asked coldly, "You've seen Zhuoan use a dragon soul with your own eyes?" At the mention of Zhuoan, the hideous man's eyes were filled with resentment, and he said fiercely, "Yes, I've seen Zhuoan use a dragon soul with my own eyes. I can't be wrong. Moreover, this kid's dragon soul is extremely strong. If Prince Orochi still has doubts, you can take the detector of your Blue Dragon Hall to the Drunk Spring Pavilion. At that time, whether or not Zhuoan has a dragon soul, you'll know at a glance," Grant Hauhai said with his hands behind his back. Hearing this, Orochi's eyes slowly narrowed, as if he was thinking. Qing Yang, who was standing beside the throne, stepped forward and said respectfully to Aoki, Hall Master, what Patriarch Grant said makes sense. We can take the detector to the Drunk Spring Pavilion. Even if Zhuoan doesn't have a dragon soul, we'll treat this as a misunderstanding. If so, then that's the best result. We'd rather kill the wrong person than let him go. Hearing Qing Yang's words, Aoki stood up and said loudly, Qing Yang, you're right. We'd rather kill the wrong person than let him go. As long as it involves the Riker bloodline, this Zhuoan can't be let go. Qing Yang, go get the dragon soul detector and ask the 4 Azure Dragon Guards to come out. We'll immediately go to the Drunk Spring Pavilion. With a wave of his sleeve, Aoki said in a clear voice. Yes, sir. Hearing this, Qing Yang's eyes were filled with joy. This operation was aimed at Zhuoan, which was what he wanted to see the most. Therefore, Qing Yang's efficiency was extremely high, and he immediately went to arrange for the Azure Dragon Guards and the Dragon Soul Detector. They're mobilizing the Azure Dragon Guards. Grant Hauhai was slightly startled, and then the smile on his face became even brighter. He knew quite a bit about the Azure Dragon Guards. Speaking of which, the Azure Dragon Guards were the guards of the Blue Dragon Hall. They were not ordinary guards, but top-level guards. In the entire Azure Dragon Hall, there were only 4 Azure Dragon Guards. These 4 Azure Dragon Guards were all terrifyingly powerful. The weakest among them was at the peak of the Xuanzuan realm, and the strongest had even reached the Golden Venerable stage, which was comparable to Grant Hauhai. Therefore, when he heard that Aoki was planning to dispatch the Azure Dragon Guards, Grant Hauhai was naturally overjoyed. He knew that Zhuoan was doomed this time. Suddenly, the ugly figure took a step forward and said, Prince Aoki, can I join you in this operation to encircle and annihilate Zhuoan? I want to personally kill that little bastard Zhuoan. Sure. Your strength is at the early stage of the Sovereign stage. This time, follow the Azure Dragon Guards to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Aoki looked at the ugly man below and nodded. He did not refuse his request. He could tell that this person's cultivation was at the early stage of the Sovereign stage with a single glance. His cultivation was pretty good, and he would be of great help in the process of encircling and annihilating Zhuoan. Then, thank you, Prince Aoki. The ugly man hurriedly expressed his thanks, but his eyes were filled with a cold glint. This time, he would definitely make sure that Zhuoan died without a burial place. Qing Yang's efficiency was extremely fast. He quickly gathered 4 Azure Dragon Guards and even brought out the Dragon Soul Detector from the depths of the Blue Dragon Hall. The Dragon Soul Detector was oval in shape. It was purely formed by intertwining azure iron wires. In the center of the azure iron wires, there was a small golden ball that was shining brightly. At this moment, it looked rather dim and did not have any luster. If that Zhuoan really has a dragon soul in his body, then this Dragon Soul Detector will emit a dazzling light when it's within 100 meters of that brat. Of course, the higher the quality of the dragon soul, the more intense the light will be. Aoki slowly explained to Grant Hauhai and the others. Since everyone is here, let's set off for the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Lu Hantian is a heavenly venerable expert, so I'll hold him back alone. Qing Yang, you command the Azure Dragon Guards. If you find out that Zhuoan is really a Riker descendant, don't kill him. Capture him alive, understand? Aoki looked at Qing Yang and instructed him seriously. He knew that Qing Yang felt humiliated after being defeated by Zhuoan in the Marquis battle, so he had always wanted to kill Zhuoan. If Zhuoan was really a Riker descendant, then he was naturally more valuable alive than dead. Furthermore, Zhuoan had a dragon soul in his body, so he could not be killed. This was because the Azure Dragon Main Hall would capture Riker descendants with dragon souls alive and would not kill them. Although Aoki did not know why the Main Hall did this, he knew that a living Riker descendant was more valuable than a dead Riker descendant. Qing Yang's eyes narrowed and he lowered his head in agreement. Although he could not kill Zhuoan, he could completely torture Zhuoan. This way, he could also vent the hatred in his heart. Let's set off now. After giving his instructions, Aoki waved his hand and led Qing Yang and the Azure Dragon Guards away. The ugly man was not to be outdone and followed closely behind the Azure Dragon Guards. Grant Hauhai did not immediately follow. Instead, he silently watched as Aoki disappeared into the distance. He stood in place and did not have any intention of moving. "Father, are you not going to the Drunken Spring Pavilion?" Grant Lily asked in surprise. She knew that Grant Hauhai had always wanted to kill Zhuowen. Now that the people of the Blue Dragon Hall had set off, Grant Hauhai did not seem to be in a hurry. "Haha. Don't be anxious. Father has always felt that Zhuowen is not simple. I'm afraid that the Blue Dragon Hall is not enough to take down Zhuowen, so we still need to meet someone." Grant Hauhai suddenly smiled. "Who?" Grant Lily asked subconsciously. If Zhuowen was only a Rika descendant, then that person would not be interested. However, Zhuowen is the same as Long Xiaotian, a Rika descendant with dragon souls. Then that person will really be interested in Zhuowen. Grand Hauhai smiled mysteriously and did not reveal the identity of the person he spoke of. Instead, with a wave of his sleeve, he brought Grand Lily and broke through the air. He left the Azure Dragon Palace and shot towards the Imperial City. A figure was as fast as lightning. He quickly stepped on the night sky and returned to the Drunken Spring Pavilion in an instant. This person had a delicate face and carried a green coffin on his back. It was Zhuowen, who had just returned from the nearby hills. After returning to the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Zhuowen greeted Lu Hantian and directly returned to his room. He began to go into seclusion and silently comprehend the nirvana of the Great Sun, hoping to unearth more of its potential. Chapter 785. Extortion. What a powerful aura. An expert has come to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. In a rather luxurious room in the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Lu Hantian, who was sitting cross-legged, suddenly opened his eyes. A cold light burst out from his eyes. In his senses, he discovered that there were several terrifying auras rushing towards the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Their speed was extremely fast and their target was clear. They were obviously coming for the Drunken Spring Pavilion. With a stomp of his foot, Lu Hantian disappeared from the room and instantly appeared 1,000 miles away from the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Quietly floating in the air, Lu Hantian looked into the distance and immediately saw 6 figures flying towards him as fast as lightning. Blue Dragon Hall's Aoki. At the front of the 6 figures was a middle-aged man wearing a green robe. He had a smile on his face as he lightly floated over. He seemed to be taking a leisurely stroll, but in reality, a single step was 100 miles away. It was almost as if he had shrunk the ground into an inch. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Aoki also noticed Lu Hantian in front of him. With a wave of his right hand, he stopped dozens of meters in front of Lu Hantian. Seeing that Aoki had stopped, the 6 figures behind him also stopped and looked at Lu Hantian in front of them. "Aoki, what is the meaning of this? Why did you mobilize the Azure Dragon Guard in the middle of the night and even come to the Drunken Spring Pavilion?" Lu Hantian asked with an unkind gaze. Aoki didn't care about Lu Hantian's unkind attitude. The corner of his mouth rose as he said indifferently, "Brother Hantian, why are you so angry? We didn't come to the Drunken Spring Pavilion for you. Could it be Zhuowen?" Lu Hantian's eyes flashed with a cold light as he probed. "That's right. It's Zhuowen," the Azure Dragon generously admitted. Lu Hantian's pupils shrank, and he coldly said, "Zhuowen doesn't seem to have offended your Blue Dragon Hall, right? Could it be that the reason you came here today is because that trash behind you, Qing Yang, was defeated by Zhuowen, so you want to avenge him?" After saying that, Lu Hantian pointed at Qing Yang and called him a piece of trash. Qing Yang's expression darkened, his eyes were filled with hatred. Lu Hantian was a heavenly venerable powerhouse, so Qing Yang didn't have the guts to refute him. However, he placed all the blame on Zhuowen in his heart. If he could capture Zhuowen alive this time, he would definitely humiliate him to vent the hatred in his heart. However, Aoki shook his head and said, "This is just a small matter. It's really impossible for this hall master to mobilize so many people for this. You can only blame it on the fact that Zhuowen has a dragon soul and is a descendant of the Rika." After saying that, Lu Hantian's heart clenched. He frowned slightly and looked at Aoki with a grave expression. He didn't expect Aoki to know that Zhuowen had a dragon soul. However, Lu Hantian still couldn't figure out how Aoki knew. After all, Zhuowen had never displayed a dragon soul in front of others. Aoki. Some things can't be guessed carelessly. Zhuowen's surname is Zhuo, not Long. He's not a descendant of the Riker. Now that you've mobilized so many people to capture Zhuowen and believe that he's a descendant of the Riker, you must show evidence. Lu Hantian coldly snorted. When Lu Hantian said this, the ugly one-armed man behind the Azure Dragon Guard suddenly laughed loudly and said, Lu Hantian, how laughable. Even now, you still want to hide the secret of Zhuowen's dragon soul? When we were at the Baichuan Marquis mansion, Zhuowen released a terrifying dragon soul before he died. Although you sealed the mouths of most people, you left out one person. Hee hee. When the ugly one-armed man said this, Lu Hantian's pupils shrank. He stared at the man and the doubt in his eyes turned into shock. He said in a low voice, It's you? I didn't expect you to become like this. You're really neither human nor ghost. Lu Hantian, it's all because of you. If it wasn't for you, how could I have ended up like this? Although you sealed the mouths of the others in Muqin County, you can't seal my mouth. Haha, I've seen Zhuowen's dragon soul with my own eyes. That little bastard is dead for sure. Haha. The ugly one-armed man laughed wildly. It was as if he was happier than anyone that Zhuowen was dead. You're courting death. Back then, I didn't eliminate the root of the problem. It seems like I was negligent. Today, you'll stay here forever. Lu Hantian's killing intent soared. He stepped forward and his speed soared to the extreme. In an instant, he rushed towards the ugly one-armed man. Ah! A sharp whistling sound came out of the ugly man's mouth. Seeing Lu Hantian rushing towards him, the ugly man quickly retreated several hundred meters away. Do you think you can escape in front of me? Die for me. Lu Hantian's speed soared to the extreme and he instantly closed in on the ugly man. Boom. With a palm strike, Lu Hantian frowned slightly. He felt as if he had fallen into a swamp. Following that, he retreated several dozen steps. After stabilizing his body, he stared at the green figure in front of the ugly man with fear. Aoki, you dare to stop me? This guy isn't from your Blue Dragon Hall. Lu Hantian looked at Aoki with fear. His expression was cold. He was very clear about Aoki's strength. He was also at the peak of the heavenly venerable realm. He was only one step away from reaching the Emperor realm. The Azure Dragon Subhall's influence in the Azure Mystic Empire was only second to the royal clan. It was far more powerful than the 5 great clans. This was not a groundless rumor. Other than having a huge influence, the strength of the Azure Dragon Subhall's palace master was extremely terrifying. Haha. Lu Hantian, the news that Zhuowen has a dragon soul was provided by this person. Since you're so anxious to kill him, it seems like you also know that Zhuowen has a dragon soul in his body, right? Also, this person provided such important information for our Blue Dragon Hall. Our Blue Dragon Hall naturally has to protect him. How can we allow you to kill him just because you want to? At this point, Aoki's clothes fluttered. With a stomp of his foot, a terrifying aura burst out from his body. Under this aura, the space within several dozen feet of him shattered as if it was about to collapse. Qing Yang, bring the Azure Dragon Guards to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. First, use the Dragon Soul Detector to test Zhuowen. If he has a dragon soul in his body, capture him alive. However, if he doesn't have a dragon soul, kill him immediately. Moreover, this also proves that some people provided false information. Kill them as well. At this point, Aoki glanced at the ugly man behind him. The ugly man's face stiffened. How could he not understand the meaning behind Aoki's words? If Zhuowen really didn't have a dragon soul in his body, not only would Zhuowen die, but he would also be buried with him. Understood. Let's head to the Drunken Spring Pavilion now. Qing Yang nodded as a trace of anticipation appeared in his eyes. Right now, the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards of the Blue Dragon Hall were by his side. Zhuowen simply didn't have the slightest ability to resist in front of him. At that time, Zhuowen would be at his mercy. Swoosh, swoosh. As he spoke, Qing Yang brought the Azure Dragon Guards and disappeared from the spot. They flew towards the Drunken Spring Pavilion. The ugly man's eyes flickered as he followed behind the azure dragon guards. "Let's see where you're going." Lu Hantian roared in anger. He waved his right hand and wanted to attack Qing Yang and the others. Unfortunately, his attack was basically blocked by Aoki. He couldn't harm Qing Yang and the others at all. "Lu Hantian, your opponent is me. I think you should take this seriously. Otherwise, your ending won't be too good." Aoki stared indifferently at Lu Hantian. The arc on the corner of his mouth became wider and wider. It was even filled with ridicule. "Scram!" Lu Hantian roared in anger. He stomped his foot and a huge blood spear condensed. With another stomp, Lu Hantian brought the blood spear and shot forward like an arrow towards Aoki. "Good timing. I've been wanting to spar with you for a long time. It's a pity that I haven't had the chance to do so. But now, I can have a good spar." Aoki laughed. Countless green lights burst out from his body and transformed into countless green vines in the air. They flew towards Lu Hantian. Bang! 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 A terrifying explosion resounded as the blood spear and the green vines collided. Instantly, the entire sky was dyed red with blood and green. Bang! Bang! The explosion stopped. The two figures in the air retreated several hundred steps back. Their gazes were solemn as they stared at each other. "Ha ha! Moreover, you're indeed a genius that even the Azure Emperor praised. You're much younger than me, but your cultivation is comparable to mine. Even I can't help but admire your talent, Lu Hantian." Aoki laughed as he charged towards Lu Hantian again. Countless green lights shot out. His power was much more terrifying than before. Lu Hantian's gaze was extremely gloomy. He didn't want to be entangled with Aoki. At this moment, he was worried about Zhuowen's safety. Unfortunately, Aoki's strength wasn't any weaker than his. It was basically impossible for him to escape. Therefore, Lu Hantian's heart was burning with anxiety. While Lu Hantian and Aoki were fighting, Qing Yang had already brought the 4 azure dragon guards to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. He silently looked down at the Drunken Spring Pavilion. "Hey! Who are those 6 people?" As Qing Yang and the others descended, everyone in the Drunken Spring Pavilion raised their heads and looked at Qing Yang and the others with puzzlement in their eyes. "That's Qing Yang, one of the 2 peerless heroes of the Blue Dragon Hall. I saw him during the Marquis battle." Many people in the Drunken Spring Pavilion recognized Qing Yang, who was standing at the front. They all started to discuss spiritedly. "It's actually Qing Yang from the Blue Dragon Hall. I wonder why he came to the Drunken Spring Pavilion tonight. I'm afraid it's because of Zhuowen. After all, during the Marquis battle, Zhuowen defeated Qing Yang and made him lose face. He should be here tonight to get back his face." There were also many people who guessed Qing Yang's purpose in coming to the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Most of them guessed that Qing Yang was here to get back at them tonight. "Zhuowen, hurry up and get out here." Standing on top of the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Qing Yang's eyes were cold as he shouted. Under the amplification of origin energy, his voice was like rolling thunder as it spread out. "Ayo! So it's the distinguished guests of the Blue Dragon Hall. Xu Niang has neglected you. There are still many seats in the wind and flower area. Why don't you all come down and have a seat, drink some wine, and watch the ladies dance?" Xu Niang smiled charmingly. "We didn't come here to enjoy the scenery, but to find that little bastard Zhuowen. Get him out here right now." Chapter 786. Betrayal. Qing Yang spoke without any trace of politeness, causing Lady Shu's face to stiffen. Her eyes flickered and she remained silent. "Zhuowen, do you still want to be a coward? If you still don't come out today, I will tear down the Drunken Spring Pavilion and dig 3 feet into the ground to get you out." Qing Yang's gaze became even colder. He had already shouted outside the Drunken Spring Pavilion, but Zhuowen still didn't come out. He felt even more disdain in his heart, thinking that Zhuowen was afraid of the Blue Dragon Hall. "Why are you looking for Zhuowen?" Suddenly, a clear and melodious voice sounded from within the pavilion. "LV Nantian led LV Atao and more than a dozen juniors over here." Lu Nantian raised his head and looked at Qing Yang. He frowned slightly. Zhuowen didn't seem to have provoked the Blue Dragon Hall. Why did Qing Yang bring people to the drunken spring pavilion to cause trouble? Lu Nantian, quickly ask Zhuoan to come out. Otherwise, all of you from Muqin County will be buried with him, Qing Yang said indifferently. What a big tone. You dare to speak so arrogantly in the drunken spring pavilion. Qing Yang, aren't you too arrogant? Tao, who was standing beside Lu Nantian, snorted coldly. Qing Yang's gaze turned cold. He glanced at Tao indifferently and said, I admire your courage. An ant-like existence like you dares to speak to me like this. Haha. You were defeated by Zhuoan in the Marquis battle. Do you really think you have the qualifications to speak like this? Tao retorted sarcastically. You're courting death. Qing Yang's complexion turned ugly. He shouted in a low voice. His figure turned into a shadow and instantly rushed towards Tao. Being defeated by Zhuoan was a pain in his heart. How could he not be angry when Tao poked his sore spot? Seeing Qing Yang attack without saying a word, Lu Nantian's expression changed slightly. Just as Qing Yang closed in on Lu Nantian shouted and struck out with his right palm, meeting Qing Yang's attack head-on. Rumble. A terrifying force burst out from the two of them, forming an air current that resembled an upside-down waterfall. Thud, thud, thud. The two of them separated as soon as they came into contact. Both of them retreated dozens of steps before they were barely able to stop themselves and stared at each other. Lu Nantian, you dare to stop me? Qing Yang stared coldly at Lu Nantian. Lu Nantian sneered, how laughable. You've already attacked the geniuses of Muqin County. As the county lord of Muqin County, can't I attack? Me. Since you've already attacked, you'll have to pay the price. Qing Sai, kill Lu Nantian. Qing Yang said to the Azure Dragon Guard behind him expressionlessly. Yes. The 4 Azure Dragon Guards had their own code names, Qing Yi to Qing Sai. Qing Yi was the strongest, while Qing Sai was the weakest. Although Qing Sai was the weakest, he was still at the peak of the Xuanzuan realm. He was much stronger than the average Xuanzuan realm expert. At the very least, he was much stronger than Lu Nantian. Whoosh! As he spoke, Qing Sai turned into a green shadow and instantly pounced on Lu Nantian. A terrifying green force burst out, causing Lu Nantian's expression to change slightly. Bang bang bang! In an instant, the two of them clashed. Terrifying shockwaves spread out, causing the space around them to collapse. Let's see who can protect you this time. Qing Yang's sinister gaze locked onto Lu Tao. He pounced again and struck out with his right palm. Green force flew out and turned into a dragon-shaped claw, slamming violently toward Lu Tao. Block it! Tao shouted. He formed a seal with both hands, and countless origin energy gathered, forming a huge oval-shaped dome in front of him, blocking in front of him. Crack! Unfortunately, Lu Tao's defense was nothing in front of Qing Yang. It shattered into countless pieces as soon as the two of them collided. Fart! Lu Tao spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. 2 beautiful figures appeared and placed their hands on Lu Tao's back. Only then did Lu Tao stop retreating completely. Brother Lu, are you okay? The 2 beautiful figures were naturally Luo Xing and Qing Lian. At the same time, more than 10 other geniuses from Muqin County gathered around Lu Tao and stared at Qing Yang angrily. This Qing Yang was so overbearing. He directly attacked without any hesitation. Moreover, he did not show any mercy at all. It was obvious that he intended to kill Tao. What? Are you bunch of trash very angry? But what's the use of being angry? You're no match for me at all. Weaklings should have the awareness of weaklings. Qing Yang looked down at Lu Tao and the others and said disdainfully. You're just a weakling in front of Zhuoan. What kind of ability is it to deal with us? If Zhuoan was here, would you still dare to be so arrogant? Behind Lu Tao, a genius said with righteous indignation. Fart. However, the moment this genius finished speaking, his head was separated from his body and a strand of blood suddenly shot out. Qing Yang slowly retracted his hand and said coldly, on the contrary, I hope that Zhuoan appears in front of me now. Because the moment that little bastard appears, it'll be the time of his death. Qing Yang attacked too quickly. Luitao and the others did not see it clearly at all. That genius head was separated from his body and he fell to the ground dead. Qing Yang, you dare to kill a genius from Muqin County? Luitao's eyes were bloodshot when he saw that genius silently die. Don't worry. In a moment, your fate will be the same as that guy's. It's just a matter of time. Qing Yang grinned and shook his sleeves. A terrifying azure chi surged out of his body and soared into the sky. It turned into a gigantic azure dragon in the sky. He was using the Blue Dragon Hall's secret technique, the Azure Dragon secret technique. Why don't you go with that guy? If anyone has anything to do with Zhuowen, I won't leave a single one alive. I'll kill them all. Qing Yang's eyes were filled with a cruel smile. At the moment when Qing Yang was about to attack, a silhouette behind Luitao suddenly stood up and said, Your Excellency Qing Yang, please wait. I know where Zhuowen is in Shuiyu. I can take you to his room and you can capture him in one fell swoop. That person was wearing blood-red clothes and had a blood-red sword on his back. He was the first genius of the Imperial Sword Sect in Muqin County, Zhu Kai. In the past, Zhu Kai had suffered a lot at the hands of Zhuowen. However, as Zhuowen's strength became more and more terrifying, the gap between Zhu Kai and Zhuowen became wider and wider. Therefore, Zhu Kai had gradually lost interest in Zhu Kai. However, today, Qing Yang came to find trouble with Zhuowen in a threatening manner. Zhu Kai's thoughts of taking revenge on Zhuowen were once again active. At this moment, he naturally hurriedly stepped forward. Zhu Kai, you! Luitao, Luo Xing, Qing Lian and the others were furious. After Zhuowen had come back from the mountain, he had informed Lu Hantian that he was going to meditate in seclusion for a day or two. The geniuses of Muqin County naturally knew that Zhuowen was going to meditate in seclusion. Because Zhuowen was meditating in seclusion, when Qing Yang had come to Drunken Spring Pavilion, Zhuowen hadn't come out. Oh, you know where Zhuowen is? I called that little bastard Zhuowen's name outside and he didn't come out. I'm afraid that he ran away because he was afraid. What's the point of knowing where he is? Qing Yang narrowed his eyes and stared at Zhu Kai. Zhu Kai's hair stood on end and he was covered in cold sweat. He hastily explained, Your Excellency Qing Yang, the reason why Zhuowen hasn't come out is that he's meditating in seclusion. Qing Yang's eyes flashed with joy when he heard that. He laughed and said, So he's meditating in seclusion. No wonder he hasn't come out until now. Lead the way for me. I'd like to see what that little bastard Zhuowen is meditating in seclusion for. Yes. Zhu Kai was overjoyed when he heard that. Just as he was about to lead Qing Yang to the Shuiyu area, Elviatao and a dozen other people blocked his way. Zhu Kai, as a genius of Muqin County, you actually helped the Blue Dragon Hall to betray Zhuowen. Are you still human? Elviatao stared at Zhu Kai coldly and said coldly. Zhu Kai shook his head and said, Although I'm a genius of Muqin County, I still haven't forgotten the humiliation that Zhuowen brought to me. I didn't do anything before because I wasn't as strong as him. Now that the Blue Dragon Hall wants to kill Zhuowen, how can I let go of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity? Despicable and shameless guy. Luo Xing and Qing Lian clenched their teeth and said coldly, You can say whatever you want. I only want Zhuowen to die. Zhu Kai said coldly. Qing Yang came to Zhu Kai's side and looked at Elviatao indifferently. He said, If you don't want to die, get out of here. As soon as he said that, the other geniuses behind Elviatao looked at him and left. Soon, only Elviatao, Luo Xing and Qing Lian were left standing in front of Qing Yang. The three of you don't want to leave. Do you want to die? Qing Yang looked at Elviatao and the other two and sneered. Elviatao stepped forward and said firmly, Zhuowen is the hope of Muqin County. I won't let you disturb him. If you have the ability, you can wait until Zhuowen comes out of seclusion before you challenge him. Qing Yang said impatiently, I don't have time to talk nonsense with you. Since the three of you are so stubborn, don't blame me for being merciless. After he finished speaking, Qing Yang took a step forward and his speed rose to the limit. He arrived in front of Elviatao and the other two in an instant. He pressed his palm down and the green dragon shadow behind him roared and swooped down. Luo Xing, Qing Lian, help me. Looking at the enormous azure dragon, Elviatao's gaze was extremely serious. He shouted loudly behind him, and his hands instantly formed seals. Waves of surging origin energy poured out and transformed into an endlessly revolving origin energy shield in front of him. Luo Xing and Qing Lian knew that the situation was critical. They shouted and extended their hands to Elviatao's back. Surges of vigorous yuan power flowed into Elviatao's body. Suddenly, the shield in front of Elviatao grew several times bigger. It was almost 3 feet in size and looked extremely terrifying. Boom. Chapter 787. The Shattered Dragon Soul Detector. 3 ants who don't know the immensity of heaven and earth. Scram. Qing Yang's sleeves shook, and the green dragon shadow swung its waist. The defense formed by Elviatao and the other 2 was instantly destroyed. Poochie. The 3 of them flew back and fell dozens of meters away. They spat out mouthfuls of blood and looked dispirited. They wanted to get up, but they had no strength at all. At this moment, the battle between LV Nantien and Qing Sai was coming to an end. A muffled groan was heard, and a figure flew back and smashed into the ground not far from Elviatao and the other 2. Dust filled the air. Everyone looked over and saw that the person who had fallen into the pit was the County Lord of Muqin County, LV Nantien. At this moment, LV Nantian's hair was disheveled, and he looked dispirited. Traces of blood flowed from the corner of his mouth, and his eyes were unfocused. The attack just now had quite a big impact on him. Whoosh! The sound of something breaking through the air rang out. Qing Sai instantly arrived in front of LV Nantien and grabbed his neck with his right hand. He looked at Qing Yang and asked coldly, "Lord Qing Yang, how should we deal with this person?" When Elviatao and the others nearby saw LV Nantien being carried by Qing Sai without any strength to resist, their eyes were filled with monstrous fury. "Qing Yang, my father is the County Lord of Muqin County. Do you dare to touch him?" Elviatao said in a low voice. Qing Yang ignored Elviatao and slowly walked to Qing Sai. He stretched out his right hand and slapped LV Nantian's cheek. He smiled sinisterly and said, "The County Lord of Muqin County is actually such a useless piece of trash. If you know what's good for you, you won't have ended up like this." Boom. LV Nantian's eyes were cold. He suddenly stretched out his right hand, intending to grab Qing Yang in front of him. Qing Yang's pupils shrank. He stepped back and slapped with his right hand. A muffled groan was heard, and Qing Yang involuntarily took a few steps back. His eyes were extremely cold. "LV Nantien, you really don't know what's good for you. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being ruthless. Qing Sai, kill him directly." Qing Yang said coldly. "Yes." Lu Nantien nodded and exerted force with his right hand. The crisp sound of bones breaking resounded throughout the Drunken Spring Pavilion. Following that, Lu Nantian's neck bent and he actually lost all signs of life. With Lu Nantian's death, Qing Sai casually tossed Lu Nantian's corpse to the side, ignoring it. "No." Looking at the Lu Nantien who had collapsed on the ground and died with his eyes wide open, Elviatao was startled at first, but soon after, he let out a hysterical roar and 2 streams of tears flowed out. Lu Nantien struggled to get up. Unfortunately, his injuries were too severe. After struggling several times, he couldn't even stand properly. Staring at the wide-eyed Lu Nantien not far away, Luatao cried his heart out. Although he couldn't stand up, he struggled to move towards Lu Nantien. Although his speed was very slow, he was extremely firm. Finally, he arrived beside Lu Nantien. Elviatao hugged Lu Nantian's corpse, who had already lost all signs of life. His hands constantly shook as he muttered in a low voice, "Father, quickly wake up. You still have a lot of things to do. Don't sleep anymore. Quickly get up." Looking at Elviatao who was crying his heart out, Luo Xing and Qing Lian's faces were filled with sorrow. Their injuries weren't any lighter than Elviatao's and it was impossible for them to stand up. As for the other geniuses of Muqin County who were hiding far away, they were all silent as their bodies trembled. Although Lu Nantian's death caused them to feel extremely sorrowful, they even felt a little sympathy for the death of a rabbit. However, compared to their sorrowful emotions, they were more afraid. They were afraid of the forces of the Blue Dragon Hall. Even Muqin County's county lord, Lu Nantian, had died. If they went up, they would simply be courting death. At the same time, Lu Hantian's delayed appearance aroused their suspicions. They were afraid that Lu Hantian was also entangled with the people of the Blue Dragon Hall. Otherwise, it was impossible for Lu Hantian to not know that Qing Yang had mobilized such a large force to Drunken Spring Pavilion. Seeing Lu Nantian killed in an instant, Zhu Kai, who was standing behind Qing Yang, trembled all over. The gaze he used to look at Qing Yang was filled with fear. This Qing Yang was indeed ruthless and merciless. After all, Lu Nantian was the county lord of Muqin County. He actually killed Lu Nantian without even frowning. Lord Qing Yang, what about the three of them? Qing Sai suddenly pointed at Lv Tao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian on the ground and asked coldly. They're just 3 pieces of trash. No need to pay attention to them. Go directly to the side room and find that little bastard Zhuoan. There's no need to waste time. As he spoke, Qing Yang's gaze landed on Zhu Kai. He said indifferently, bring us to find Zhuoan? If I find out that what you said is false, you know the consequences. Hearing this, Zhu Kai's entire body trembled. He hurriedly smiled and said, Lord Qing Yang, don't worry. I definitely won't deceive you. I'll bring you to Zhuoan's side room right now. As he spoke, Zhu Kai obediently led the way. His expression was extremely nervous. He was afraid that he would make Qing Yang unhappy. At that time, his ending wouldn't be any better than Lu Nantian. As for Qing Yang, he calmly followed behind Zhu Kai. Behind Qing Yang were the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards who were like bodyguards. As for the ugly one-armed man, he carefully followed behind the Azure Dragon Guards. His eyes flashed with a glimmer of expectation. He could finally see that little bastard Zhuoan. Today, he would definitely get rid of him completely. After a while, Zhu Kai brought Qing Yang and the others to the side room where Zhuoan was. After bringing them there, Zhu Kai slowly retreated to the side. His gaze looking in the direction of the side room was filled with schadenfreude. Ci. A strange sound rang out. Qing Yang flicked his finger and the dragon soul detector that he had brought out from the Blue Dragon Hall suddenly appeared in his hand. At this time, the dragon soul detector was emitting an extremely dazzling light. It almost illuminated the outside of the side room as if it was daytime. What a strong reaction. This Zhuoan really has a dragon soul in his body. Moreover, it's an extremely high-grade dragon soul. Looking at the dazzling dragon soul detector in his hand, Qing Yang's gaze revealed a trace of shock. The method of using the dragon soul detector wasn't very difficult. Moreover, it was based on the reaction of the dragon soul detector to detect the quality of the dragon soul in a cultivator's body. The dragon soul detector in Qing Yang's hand was the lowest grade. It could only detect dragon souls below grade 7. Once it exceeded grade 7, the dragon soul detector would have a violent reaction and be damaged. The light of the dragon soul detector became more and more dazzling. The reaction also became more and more intense. It had almost reached the limit of the detector. Not only was Qing Yang shocked, even the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards finally revealed a shocked expression. They were very clear that only a grade 7 dragon soul could cause the dragon soul detector to emit such a dazzling reaction. Could it be that the dragon soul in Zhuoan's body is a grade 7 dragon soul? The 4 great Azure Dragon Guards looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. That was a grade 7 dragon soul. Such a powerful dragon soul was extremely rare even in the Azure Dragon main palace. Once a dragon soul reached grade 7 or above, it was called a high-grade dragon soul. Its power was much stronger than other dragon souls. Qing Yang's expression was gloomy and there was a trace of jealousy in his eyes. He was the number 1 genius of the Azure Dragon sub-palace. He was the only cultivator in the Azure Dragon sub-palace who had a dragon soul. Although he only had a grade 3 dragon soul, it was a dragon soul in his body. He had a unique position in the Azure Dragon sub-palace. Whether it was Aoki or the Azure Dragon Guards, they all valued him. This was also the reason why the Azure Dragon Guards were willing to listen to Qing Yang. Qing Yang's arrogance mainly came from the dragon soul in his body. Now, Zhuoan also had a dragon soul. Moreover, the dragon soul in his body was even more powerful than his, almost reaching the grade 7 dragon soul. This kid must die. Thinking of this, Qing Yang's eyes were full of murderous intent. His arrogance came from the dragon soul. Now that he saw a more outstanding dragon soul than him, Qing Yang naturally couldn't tolerate this. Crack! Just as Qing Yang was lost in his thoughts, a soft sound rang out. Then, Qing Yang and the Azure Dragon Guards were shocked to see that the dragon soul detector in Qing Yang's hand had completely shattered into countless pieces at this moment. The light that was originally as bright as day was completely extinguished. In the end, it was eerily dark. For a moment, the courtyard outside the room became deathly silent. Qing Yang stared blankly at the shattered dragon soul detector. His gaze became sluggish at this moment. Not only Qing Yang, but the 4 Azure Dragon Guards behind him were also completely stunned. Their expressions froze as they stared blankly at the dragon soul detector. They had never thought that the dragon soul detector, which was used to detect the dragon soul, would shatter while it was detecting the dragon soul. And now, this scene clearly appeared in front of their eyes, causing them to involuntarily widen their eyes. The dragon soul detector has actually shattered. Could it be that Zhuowen's dragon soul is so powerful that even the dragon soul detector can't withstand it? Qing Yang's throat moved as he voiced out his shocking guess. He was very clear that the dragon soul detector of the Azure Dragon Branch Palace was only a low-grade detector. It could only detect dragon souls below grade 7. Once the limit was exceeded, the detector would not be able to withstand it and shatter. In other words, the quality of Zhuowen's dragon soul was not only grade 7, but it had surpassed grade 7, reaching grade 8 or even grade 9. How is this possible? Is the dragon soul in Zhuowen's body really that powerful? The 4 Azure Dragon Guards couldn't help but exclaim in shock. Damned Zhuowen! Qing Yang cursed inwardly. He suddenly lifted his leg and pushed open the door of the room, entering the room. There was a praying mat in the middle of the room. A figure was sitting on the praying mat. At this moment, the figure's body was circulating with golden light. His eyes were tightly shut as he silently cultivated. Zhuowen, you're really in seclusion. It seems that even the heavens want you dead. Then you can go to hell. Qing Yang narrowed his eyes as his gaze locked onto Zhuowen. He took a step forward and used the Azure Dragon secret art that he was best at. The terrifying Azure origin energy turned into a huge Azure Dragon shadow. Chapter 788. A Life for a Life Clang. The shadow of the palm followed the shadow of the dragon and slammed into Zhuowen's chest. What shocked Qing Yang was that he found that what he had hit was not a mortal body, but a hard rock. Zhuowen's body was actually so hard. Fart. After spitting out a mouthful of fresh blood, Zhuowen suddenly opened his eyes, and his gaze contained a wisp of rage. Earlier, he was cultivating the grand rebirth art with his eyes closed with the intention of unearthing a deeper level of potential. Just as he was about to reach a critical point, someone actually slapped him fiercely, instantly waking him up. Some of the results of his previous attempts were completely wasted because of Qing Yang's slap. The moment Qing Yang's palm landed on Zhuowen's chest, he already knew that things were bad. He originally thought that this palm strike would be enough to take Zhuowen's life. Who would have thought that Zhuowen's physical body would be so terrifying? His full-powered palm strike had actually only lightly injured Zhuowen, not to mention killing Zhuowen. Thus, when he realized this, Qing Yang stomped his foot and hurriedly retreated backwards. He could sense that Zhuowen's aura was even more terrifying than it had been during the Marquis battle. His fleshly body was even tougher than before. How did Zhuowen improve so quickly? It's only been a few days. Qing Yang thought to himself as he retreated even faster. You interrupted my seclusion and you want to leave? Qing Yang, do you really think that you can come and go as you please? Zhuowen wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were gloomy to the extreme. It was all because of Qing Yang that he attacked him at the critical moment. Zhuowen's previous efforts were all in vain. How could Zhuowen not be angry? Boom! With a flash of golden light, Zhuowen arrived in front of Qing Yang in an instant. Golden light gushed out from his right hand as a terrifying power erupted, setting off countless shockwaves in the air. Qing Yang couldn't help but squint his eyes. Grabbing Qing Yang's arm, Zhuowen's eyes were cold and merciless. Suddenly, he exerted force, and the crisp sound of bones breaking could be heard. Qing Yang's right arm hung limply by his side. It was actually broken by Zhuowen. Ah! Mournful screams came from Qing Yang's mouth, heart-wrenching and lung-splitting, hysterical, like the sound of a pig being slaughtered, continuous and unending. The instant the miserable cry rang out, the expressions of the 4 azure dragon guards in the courtyard outside the room changed drastically. They naturally recognized the owner of the voice. Wasn't it Qing Yang? Go. Let's go in. Qing Yi was the strongest of the 4 azure dragon guards. He said in a low voice and led the way into the room. In an instant, only the ugly one-armed man and the frowning Zhu Kai were left in the courtyard. The two of them were scheming and no one knew what they were thinking. Zhuowen, you dare to treat me like this? Qing Yang's eyes were filled with terror as he shouted. The corners of Zhuowen's mouth were filled with a sneer. This Qing Yang really had the face to say such words. He, Zhuowen, was sitting in seclusion in his room. Qing Yang suddenly barged in and launched a sneak attack on him, causing his previous efforts to go to waste. Now that he had fallen into Zhuowen's hands, he actually dared to question him in front of Zhuowen. It was really laughable. Qing Yang, you're really as stupid as a pig. As he spoke, Zhuowen showed no mercy. His right hand formed a claw and grabbed Qing Yang's left hand. Then, with a twist, another crisp sound of bones breaking sounded out. Qing Yang's left hand was instantly broken by Zhuowen. Ah! An even more mournful scream rang out from Qing Yang's mouth. The sound was so loud that it almost filled the entire room. Little bastard! Let go of Lord Qing Yang. A loud shout suddenly came from the door. Then, a terrifying force swept over and headed straight for Zhuowen's face. In Zhuowen's perception, he could clearly feel the terror of this force. Moreover, the trajectory of this force was very precise. It happened to be between him and Qing Yang, so Zhuowen had no choice but to retreat. In desperation, Zhuowen could only give up on Qing Yang. He took a step back and retreated dozens of meters. He stared coldly at the 4 figures that came from outside the door. He could feel that the aura of these 4 figures was extremely terrifying. Especially the person in the lead. His aura was extremely powerful and terrifying. The attack just now was launched by this person. Kid. That person is not simple. His cultivation should be at the early stage of the Golden Venerable Realm. I'm afraid you're not his match. Xiao Hei's dignified voice suddenly rang out, causing Zhuowen's pupils to shrink. One of these 4 people was at the Golden Venerable Realm. That was too terrifying. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 4 figures instantly came into the room. The 4 of them were wearing green armor. Naturally, they were the 4 green dragon guards. The one who attacked just now was the strongest, Qing Yi. He was a powerful warrior at the early stage of the Golden Venerable Realm. Lord Qing Yang, are you all right? The 4 of them came to Qing Yang's side and instantly noticed Qing Yang's limp arms. Their eyes darkened. You dare to cripple Lord Qing Yang's arms? How dare you? Qing Yi slowly opened his mouth, his voice extremely cold and indifferent. Ridiculous. This Qing Yang is a good-for-nothing. How can I be blamed? It was clearly this good-for-nothing who launched a sneak attack on me first. Even if the sneak attack was successful, it could not hurt me. Instead, I crippled his arms. It's a waste to leave such a good-for-nothing in your Blue Dragon Hall. Zhuowen sneered. Zhuowen, you. Zhuowen's words were vicious. Qing Yang was so angry that he almost fainted. Sharp-tongued brat. Second brother, third brother, fourth brother, the 3 of you take care of this brat. I'll treat Lord Qing Yang's arms. Qing Yi coldly glanced at Zhuowen. He instructed the 3 green dragon guards behind him and began to focus on treating Qing Yang's arms. After all, Qing Yang's arms had just been crippled. Qing Yi was a Golden Venerable Realm elite. If he was treated in time, there was a high chance that his arms could recover. Big brother, this brat is just a brat who stinks of milk. There's no need for the 3 of us to work together. I alone am enough to deal with this brat. Qing Sai's lips curled up. He stomped his foot and charged directly at Zhuowen. The corners of his mouth were filled with a sinister smile. Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. He formed a seal with both hands. Suddenly, 3 pairs of lightning wings grew out of his back. He turned into a lightning shadow and dodged Qing Sai's attack. With a stomp of his foot, Zhuowen did not clash with Qing Sai. Instead, he turned into a sharp bolt of lightning and rushed out of the side window. Zhuowen was not in the mood to tangle with the 4 green dragon guards. What he was worried about was that Qing Yang had led the green dragon guards and aggressively barged into the side room. He wondered how Lu Nantian and the others were doing. Moreover, Zhuowen knew that Qing Yang was able to accurately pinpoint where he was in the side room. There was probably someone leading the way. It seemed that there was a traitor among the geniuses of Muqin County. "Chase!" Qing Sai coldly shouted. He turned into a ray of green light and charged straight at Zhuowen. Qing and Qing San looked at each other. They were not in a hurry to chase after him. Instead, they chuckled and followed behind Qing Sai from a distance. Although Zhuowen was indeed very strong, and there were recent rumors about him killing Xuanzuan realm cultivators, Zhuowen had only killed cultivators in the early stages of the Xuanzuan realm. Qing Sai was at the peak of the Xuanzuan realm. He was many times stronger than those cultivators in the early stages of the Xuanzuan realm. Although Zhuowen was heaven-defying, they were not particularly worried. Whoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen arrived at the open space where Lu Nantian, Viatao, and the others were. At this moment, the geniuses of Muqin County had already helped the injured Qing Lian and Luo Xing up and placed them on a seat on the side. As for Viatao, he was like a statue. He was kneeling in front of Lu Nantian's corpse in silence. Zhuowen's arrival immediately attracted the attention of many people in the open space. "It's Zhuowen. Zhuowen is here." Zhuowen's arrival immediately caused the geniuses of Muqin County to reveal joyful expressions. It was as if they had seen their last life-saving straw. Viatao, who was kneeling in front of Lu Nantian, also saw Zhuowen in the sky. His body trembled, and the sorrow in his eyes became even more intense. Zhuowen naturally noticed that Viatao, Luo Xing, and Qing Lian had suffered serious injuries. His gaze became even colder. However, when Zhuowen's gaze finally landed on Lu Nantian, who was in front of Viatao, his pupils shrank to the size of needles. Whoosh! In an instant, he arrived beside Lu Nantian. Zhuowen's right hand touched Lu Nantian's neck. His body trembled because he discovered that Lu Nantian's pulse had completely stopped. In other words, Lu Nantian was dead. Zhuowen had a very good impression of Lu Nantian. Not only was he Lu Hantian's brother, but Lu Nantian was also humble and fair. Back then, Zhuowen's limelight in the Vitality Tower had even overshadowed Zhuowen's. Lu Nantian was not displeased by this and did not do anything to suppress Zhuowen. Instead, he was extremely happy and tried his best to rope in Zhuowen. His attitude was extremely good. Moreover, because of his relationship with Lu Hantian, Lu Nantian had even helped the Zhuo family a lot. Moreover, he had stood up for Zhuowen many times. Zhuowen still remembered these friendships and had never forgotten them. But today, the dignified and amiable Lu Nantian had died in front of him. For some reason, Zhuowen suddenly felt extremely uncomfortable in his heart. A monstrous rage surged out from Zhuowen's body, causing Zhuowen's eyes to turn a strange golden color. "Brother Lu, who killed Marquis Lu? And who injured you?" Zhuowen suppressed his emotions and asked in a low voice. Luitao was startled, then shook his head and sighed. "Zhuowen, you'd better leave quickly. The Blue Dragon Hall's target this time is you. They already know that you have a dragon soul. If you don't leave now, it will be too late. I say, who killed Marquis Lu? And who injured you?" Zhuowen suddenly looked straight at Luitao and asked word by word. Luitao's expression froze. He clenched his fists and said while gnashing his teeth, "We were all injured by Qing Yang. My father was killed by the 4th of the 4 Azure Dragon Guards, and the order to kill my father was given by Qing Yang. Everything was because of Qing Yang. The murderers are Qing Yang and the Azure Dragon Guards. They all deserve to die." Viatao lost control of his emotions and roared out. LV Nantien was his father and the person he admired the most since he was young. Everything he knew was taught by LV Nantien. It could be said that Lu Nantien was both a teacher and a father to him. Their relationship was extremely deep. Qing Yang, Azure Dragon Guard. Chapter 789. Qing Sai Zhuoan, be careful of Zhu Kai. The one who brought Qing Yang and the others to the room was Zhu Kai, LV Atao suddenly said. Hearing this, Zhuoan's gaze turned cold. Qing Yang's arrival at the room he was in had already made him suspect that there was a traitor among the geniuses of Muqin County. Now it seemed that his guess was correct. They all deserved to die. Whether it was Qing Yang, the Azure Dragon Guard, or Zhu Kai, they were all on Zhuoan's must-kill list. The sound of something breaking through the air could be heard. Qing Sai had already arrived in the air above the open space and saw Zhuo Wen below at a glance. Little bastard. Why aren't you running anymore? You were running faster than anyone else, so why are you stopping now? Qing Sai looked at Zhuoan with a mocking gaze and sneered. Slightly raising his head, Zhuoan stared at Qing Sai. His gaze contained monstrous killing intent as he asked hoarsely, "Did you kill Lu Nantien?" Qing Sai was startled. He originally thought that Zhuoan's face would show fear and helplessness, but that expression did not appear on Zhuoan's face. Instead, it was replaced by a chilling killing intent. His gaze landed on Lu Nantian's corpse and couldn't help but sneer, "You're talking about that trash? It was indeed me who killed him. You're the lord of Muqin County, but I didn't expect you to be so useless and unable to take a beating." Useless? Unable to take a beating? Slightly clenching his fist, Zhuoan's gaze became even colder. A dazzling golden light burst out from his body and soared into the sky, turning into a golden pillar of light that pierced through the sky. Zhuoan instantly transformed into his four-headed and eight-armed state. His body was 3 feet tall, like a small hill, and he looked majestic. Qing Sai, who was originally indifferent, narrowed his eyes when he saw Zhuoan's current state. He actually faintly felt that the current Zhuoan gave him a trace of unease. You're only half a step away from the Xuanzuan realm. Even if your combat strength is very strong, it's impossible for you to be an opponent at the pinnacle of the Xuanzuan realm. The gap between you and me is too big. With a cold snort, Qing Sai stepped on the void and instantly turned into a cyan light shadow. His speed almost reached the speed of light as he swept behind Zhuoan. Cyan energy gathered in his hands and turned into a huge dragon claw that blasted toward Zhuoan's back. Bang! Just as the cyan dragon claws were about to reach Zhuoan's back, a pair of golden arms suddenly stretched out and fiercely slammed into Qing Sai's claws. Rumble. A muffled explosion sounded, followed by a groan from Qing Sai as he retreated. Zhuoan, on the other hand, was like a boulder, not moving at all. Instead, he calmly turned around and stared coldly at Qing Sai. What a terrifying power! Rubbing his slightly numb arms, Qing Sai looked at Zhuoan in horror. The power of this young man in front of him was somewhat terrifying. From the moment they exchanged blows, Qing Sai felt that what he hit was not a human's arm, but an indestructible steel rod. What made Qing Sai's face even gloomier was that he was at the pinnacle of the Xuanzuan realm, while Zhuoan was only half a step away from the Xuanzuan realm. The gap between the two was extremely obvious, but now, in their first exchange of blows, he was actually at a disadvantage in the hands of Zhuoan. "Didn't you want to kill me? Why are you retreating in the exchange of blows with me now?" Zhuoan sneered as he stared indifferently at Qing Sai. "Humph. Little bastard, all you have is brute force." Qing Sai snorted coldly and quickly made a seal with both hands. Suddenly, 2 green lights were derived from his back and turned into 2 huge, broad wings. However, the wings on Qing Sai's back were extremely different from ordinary wings. It was even quite strange because there were no feathers on the wings. They were just bare. What was even stranger was that the shape of the wings on Qing Sai's back was more like a pair of huge, broad, fleshy palms. At the tip of the wings, dense bony spurs were derived. It looked quite out of place. "Zhuoan, you can be proud of yourself for forcing me to use soul armor realization even if you die." With a light step, Qing Sai suddenly jumped up. In just the blink of an eye, He was already hundreds of meters high in the air. His speed was many times faster than before. What a fast speed! Qing Sai's fleshy wing armor sole has greatly increased his speed. Looking at Qing Sai's sudden increase in speed, Zhuowen narrowed his eyes. Whoosh! With a flash of green light, Qing Sai appeared behind Zhuowen in the blink of an eye. He stretched out his right hand and condensed a dragon claw again, grabbing at Zhuowen's back. Boom! The dragon claw directly hit Zhuowen's back, causing Zhuowen to lose his balance. His body leaned forward and his waist bent. Qing Sai's speed was so fast that even Zhuowen couldn't keep up with him. Although the attack landed directly on Zhuowen's body and was very powerful, Zhuowen's physical body was strong enough that he didn't suffer any serious injuries. However, a trace of blood still leaked out from the corner of his mouth. What a strong body! You took a full blow from me and only suffered a minor injury. Qing Sai's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. The strength of Zhuowen's body was somewhat beyond his expectation. Go to hell! Zhuowen shouted. He reached behind him with his right hand, wanting to grab Qing Sai. Unfortunately, Qing Sai was too fast. He broke free from Zhuowen's grasp in an instant, causing Zhuowen to miss. Haha! Zhuowen, your speed is not enough. Although your body is strong, your speed is too slow and your flexibility is not enough. You can't touch me at all, so you can only become my living target. Qing Sai floated in the air with his arms crossed. The corner of his mouth was full of complacency and even unscrupulous laughter. From Qing Sai's point of view, the huge advantage in speed had already put him in an invincible position. Zhuowen's speed was much slower than his. Standing there, he would only become a target for him, unable to even touch him in the slightest and unable to exert any force. Whoosh! A flash of lightning arrived in an instant. Qing Sai immediately found that Zhuowen had appeared in front of him without him knowing. The two of them looked at each other. Looking at Zhuowen in front of him, Qing Sai's smile suddenly froze. His pupils shrank to the size of needles as he looked at Zhuowen in disbelief. Zhuowen had suddenly appeared in front of him, yet he didn't know about it. Moreover, he hadn't sensed it at all. What did this mean? It meant that Zhuowen's speed was faster than his, so he did not notice Zhuowen's arrival at all. But was this possible? Just now, Zhuowen was unable to resist his speed. How could he appear in front of him again in the blink of an eye? You just said that I can't touch you. Is that what you mean? Zhuowen's eyes were indifferent and the corner of his mouth revealed a trace of a sarcastic smile. It's a fluke. Qing Sai muttered to himself. He stamped his feet and the thick wings on his back suddenly spread out, turning into an illusory green light as he quickly retreated. Zhuowen's mocking smile became even more intense. This Qing Sai was really ridiculous. Comparing speed with him who had the 6 wings of gale and thunder was simply courting death. With that, Zhuowen stamped his feet and the 3 pairs of lightning wings on his back spread out. In an instant, he turned into a flash of lightning and swept towards the retreating Qing Sai. His speed was unknown how much faster than Qing Sai's. A few hundred meters away, a green light flashed, revealing Qing Sai's figure. Looking around and not finding Zhuowen's figure, Qing Sai let out a sigh of relief and whispered with a frown that Zhuowen's speed is also so fast. This should be a fluke. Fluke? How stupid. A cold voice rang in Qing Sai's ears, causing his whole body to tremble. He suddenly turned his head and saw Zhuowen standing behind him quietly, looking at him with a mocking expression. How is this possible? How can your speed be so fast? Qing Sai took a few steps back and exclaimed in disbelief. Zhuowen was too lazy to talk nonsense with him. He stamped his feet and instantly appeared beside Qing Sai. His right hand suddenly stretched out and a golden light flashed, blasting towards Qing Sai. Qing Sai's eyes were gloomy. His hands turned into dragon claws and met the attack. He knew that since Zhuowen's speed was faster than his, blindly retreating would not help at all. He might as well go all out. Boom! A fist against a pair of claws. Suddenly, a terrifying golden light burst out. The green light and the golden light confronted each other, and for a moment, they were actually evenly matched. Is this all you've got? You're really too weak. Zhuowen smiled coldly. His other 7 arms suddenly hammered down, and a terrifying force burst out, smashing into the 2 dragon claws in front of him. Crack! Instantly, the pair of dragon claws were smashed into pieces. Even Ching Sai's arms were smashed into pieces by the terrifying force. Ah! With a miserable howl, Ching Sai let out a heart-wrenching cry and retreated again and again. His arms were empty, and blood gushed out like a fountain, forming a bloody rain below. Whoosh! Zhuowen stepped forward and instantly arrived in front of Ching Sai. He grabbed him with his right hand and said indifferently, "Trash that can't withstand a single blow." As he spoke, he carried Ching Sai with one hand and came to Lu Nantian's corpse on the ground. He threw it to the ground and said coldly, "Kneel." Ching Sai's face was as pale as snow. When he heard Zhuowen's words, he gritted his teeth and said nothing. "Not going to kneel?" Zhuowen's right hand turned into a claw and grabbed Ching Sai's right knee. With a crack, the kneecap was crushed, causing Ching Sai to involuntarily kneel on the ground with his right foot. "Ah! Zhuowen, what do you want?" Ching Sai roared. "What do I want? You killed Marquis Lu, and you're asking me what I want?" Zhuowen's eyes were cold and merciless. His right claw reached out again and crushed Ching Sai's left knee. Ching Sai immediately knelt on the ground, his face contorted in pain and his eyes full of resentment. Zhuowen's ruthless behavior immediately stunned many people. Ching Sai was an Azure Dragon Guard, but he was easily captured by Zhuowen and forced to kneel in front of Lu Nantian. How strong was Zhuowen? "Brother Lu. The culprit who killed Marquis Lu will be dealt with by you." Zhuowen's eyes focused on Lu Yitao as he spoke. "Bastard!" Lu Yitao roared and immediately rushed forward. His right hand pressed on Ching Sai's ribs. With a crack, Ching Sai's ribs were broken. Ching Sai looked up and groaned in pain. The pain of broken ribs was not easy to bear, especially when Lu Yitao was extremely ruthless. He did not break Ching Sai's ribs at once, but slowly, making Ching Sai feel even more pain. Chapter 790. Ching and Ching Sai screamed in agony. Yitao was not in a hurry to kill him. Instead, he continued to crush all the bones in Ching Sai's body, causing him unbearable pain. Kill me now," Ching Sai screamed. He couldn't bear Yitao's torture anymore. It was too painful. "Kill you? It won't be that easy." Yitao's eyes were red. He didn't slow down and continued to crush all the bones in Ching Sai's body. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 2 more figures appeared. Ching and Ching San leisurely arrived in the air above the empty space. Ching Sai has been chasing them for a while now. He should be able to finish off Zhuowen now. Ching said coldly. Looking at the direction they went, it should be near here. "I wonder if the battle is over yet." Ching San nodded. His expression did not change at all. Although Zhuowen's name was well known in the imperial capital, he was only a half-step mystique venerable rank. On the other hand, Ching Sai was a peak mystique venerable rank. The 2 of them did not think that Ching Sai would lose. "Ah!" A blood-curdling scream suddenly rang out, causing Ching and Ching San to stiffen. They naturally recognized this voice. Wasn't it Ching Sai's voice? "That's Ching Sai's voice. Is he in trouble?" Ching San asked in surprise. Ching narrowed his eyes and said coldly, Let's go take a look." With the guidance of the scream, they quickly arrived in the air above the empty space. They were shocked to find Ching Sai kneeling on the ground with his arms crippled. There was also a young man who was extremely ruthless. He kept hitting Ching Sai's body. Every time he hit, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. It was obvious that this young man had broken all the bones in Ching Sai's body. Kill me now," Ching Sai screamed. He was in so much pain that he wished he was dead. Yitao's face was cold and indifferent. He didn't care about Ching Sai at all. His actions were direct and efficient. He wanted Ching Sai to suffer a fate worse than death. He wanted him to regret killing Nantian and make him regret living in this world. "Stop!" Seeing Ching Sai's miserable appearance, Ching and Ching San both roared loudly. Their eyes were red as they rushed towards Yitao, wanting to stop Yitao from continuing. Rumble. A golden figure suddenly soared into the sky and slammed into Qing, causing Qing to retreat dozens of meters in the air. At the same time, rays of cold sword light flashed out from the golden figure and shot towards Qing San. They blocked Qing San's dive and caused Qing San to stop in his tracks. Your opponent is me. Don't pick the wrong opponent. Zhuowen stood in the air and stared indifferently at Qing San and Qing in front of him with a grave expression. Qing and Qing San were both stronger than Qing Sai. Qing was at the early stage of the sovereign realm, while Qing San was at the half-step sovereign realm. Qing Sai was killed by you? Qing's eyes were filled with killing intent as he coldly asked. So what if I am? So what if I'm not? Zhuowen said indifferently. It doesn't matter. Anyway, I know that you're going to die today. Qing roared as he took a step forward and instantly flew towards Zhuowen. Unknowingly, a long spear had appeared in his hand. It was flickering with a cold light and was bone-chilling. Zhuowen did not hesitate and immediately took out 8 long spears from his spiritual ring. He waved them in the air and formed 8 spear-intent domains around his body. Countless spear shadows were like small tadpoles that constantly swam around him. Bang! 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 Instantly, Zhuowen and Qing began to exchange blows. Sparks accompanied by the sound of metal colliding unceasingly flew out. The two of them were actually evenly matched for a moment. Zhuowen is so strong. Qing is at the early stage of the sovereign realm, but is actually evenly matched with him. Not far away, Qing San, who was trapped by the greater limitless sword array, looked at Zhuowen, who was evenly matched with Qing. His eyes narrowed as he revealed a trace of shock. At this moment, Elviatao had also stopped his actions as he looked at the fierce battle in the sky. His face was filled with worry. That Zhuowen is dead for sure. Qing and Qing San are much stronger than me. It's impossible for this kid to fight the two of them alone. Kid, I advise you to let me go quickly. Maybe I'll leave you with an intact corpse. Looking at Qing and Qing San who were rushing towards him, Qing Sai's eyes reignited with hope. His attitude unconsciously became arrogant and haughty. Idiot. It's better for you to die. Elviatao's gaze turned cold as he suddenly pressed down with his right hand. Under Qing Sai's horrified gaze, his hand fiercely smashed into Qing Sai's forehead. The latter did not even make a sound as he died with blood flowing out of his 7 orifices. Brother Elvi, take the people of Muqin County and leave this place. You're too weak. If you're captured by the people of the Blue Dragon Hall, I'll be in a very passive position. After Elviatao killed Qing Sai, Zhuowen's voice suddenly resounded in his mind. It turned out that Zhuowen had sent a message to him. Elviatao's gaze flickered as he sent a message, Zhuowen, be careful. After speaking, Elviatao walked towards Qing Lian, Luo Xing and the others as he briefly explained Zhuowen's intentions. The geniuses of Muqin County basically did not have any objections. Most of them were only at the ultimate 5-wheel emperor stage and below. To the cultivators of the Xuanzuan realm, they were basically ant-like existences. Staying here would undoubtedly become a burden to Zhuowen. Therefore, choosing to leave now and avoid the people of the Blue Dragon Hall was the wisest choice. Although Luo Xing and Qing Lian were reluctant to part with Zhuowen, they understood the bigger picture. After reluctantly looking at Zhuowen's back, they followed behind Elviatao and quietly left the intoxicated spring pavilion. With Qing Sai's death, Qing and Qing San's expressions became even more unsightly. The 4 great Azure Dragon Guards had worked together for many years and had gone through life and death together. Their friendship was as tenacious as brothers. Now that Qing Sai had died, how could they not be furious? Ah, Zhuowen, if it weren't for the Hall Master's orders, I would definitely kill you. But don't worry, even if I can't kill you, I can still completely cripple you and torture you until you wish you were dead. I'll avenge Qing Sai. Qing roared as he fiercely brandished the azure spear in his hand. Countless afterimages formed in front of him and completely enveloped Zhuowen's figure. Under Qing's attack, Zhuowen retreated step by step. His eyes narrowed slightly. It seemed that the strength of a supreme being cultivator was indeed much stronger than that of the Xuanzuan realm. Even if Zhuowen used his 4 heads and 8 arms, he was still suppressed. Qing-san, hurry up and break out of the formation. Let's capture this little bastard together. Qing roared. His attacks weren't slow in the slightest. Every move was aimed at Zhuowen's vital points, causing Zhuowen to be exhausted from running for his life. Within the boundless sword formation, Qing-san nodded his head. With a stomp of his foot, endless waves of water appeared around him. These waves of water were like tsunamis in the sea as they fiercely bombarded the surrounding boundless sword formation. Rumble. In an instant, the boundless sword formation was actually broken by Qing-san's waves of water. Shortly after, Qing-san joined Qing-er's formation without any hesitation. With the addition of Qing-san, Zhuowen, who was originally under great pressure, was now at a complete disadvantage. He seemed to be in an extremely passive position. This Zhuowen is going to be unlucky. With two great Azure Dragon Guards working together, this kid will probably have no way of escaping. Within the intoxicated spring pavilion, there were many cultivators who were looking up at Zhuowen and the other two fighting in the sky. Especially when they saw Qing-san and Qing-er working together to besiege Zhuowen, they all shook their heads. Whoosh! Whoosh! At the same time, two figures flew over from the direction of the room and stopped not far away from the open space. One of the two was actually the genius of Muqin County. Zhu Kai. Standing beside Zhu Kai was the ugly one-armed man. Especially when the two of them saw that Zhuowen was actually fighting against Qing-er and Qing-san at the same time without any signs of being defeated. Their eyes flickered as they revealed shock. Zhuowen's strength had somewhat exceeded their expectations. This Zhuowen's cultivation was only half a step into the Xuanzuan realm, but he was actually able to fight against a half-step sovereign realm and an initial sovereign realm cultivator at the same time. This was truly a little heaven-defying. Senior, don't you want to kill this Zhuowen? Now is the best time to act. Otherwise, if you're captured by the Azure Dragon Guards, you won't be able to kill him. Zhu Kai's eyes flickered as he suddenly spoke to the ugly man. Do I need you to remind me what to do? The ugly man coldly glanced at Zhu Kai, causing the latter to tremble and keep quiet out of fear. Turning his head, the ugly man's gaze focused on Zhuowen. His eyes were filled with chilling killing intent. He must kill this Zhuowen, and he must completely obliterate him. But now wasn't the right time. He had to wait for the best time to act and kill him with a single blow. Bang! 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 Qing-er and Qing-san's attacks were extremely fierce. Qing-er brandished his spear while Qing-san held a sledgehammer. They attacked Zhuowen from both sides, causing Zhuowen to be attacked from both sides, exhausting him to run for his life. Get out of my way, Zhuowen shouted. 4 spears in his left hand and 4 spears in his right hand burst out with terrifying spear intent. Suddenly, countless intent realms condensed and turned into 2 huge blue spears, rushing towards Qing-er and Qing-san. Clang! Qing-er and Qing-san's faces slightly changed. They raised their weapons and placed them in front of their bodies. Then, under the impact of the giant blue spears, they were pushed back dozens of meters. Zhuowen's arms drooped down as he panted. Just now, he had used all of his concepts, causing Zhuowen to expend a lot of energy. However, fortunately, Zhuowen's body was strong and his recovery was extremely fast. He only needed 3 breaths to recover most of his energy and continue fighting. As for Qing-er and Qing-san, they had already been pushed back dozens of meters by Zhuowen. If they wanted to come back and attack Zhuowen again, they would need at least 5 breaths of time. Therefore, Zhuowen was now speeding up the nirvana of the great sun to quickly recover his energy. Whoosh! Right at this moment, a figure suddenly appeared behind Zhuowen. Zhuowen was caught off guard and stretched out a skinny right hand. The right hand was covered with sharp claws, and it was like a drill that suddenly drilled into Zhuowen's back. Chapter 791. Shu Lingtian Thump. Thump. The sound of his heartbeat echoed in Zhuowen's ears. He had never expected that someone would launch a sneak attack from behind while he was fighting with Qing-er and Qing-san. What was even more unexpected was that even with his physical strength, he couldn't stop the sharp claws of this person. Now, Zhuowen could clearly feel that the sharp claws were tightly gripping his heart. He had no doubt that if he dared to move, The claws would completely tear his heart apart. Zhuowen, little bastard, you didn't expect this day to come, right? A sinister voice sounded in Zhuowen's ears, causing Zhuowen to tilt his head. His gaze was gloomy as he stared at the ugly man behind him, who was neither human nor ghost. A puzzled expression appeared on his face. He was sure that he had never seen this one-armed man before. However, this man seemed to know him. Furthermore, from his tone, he seemed to know Zhuowen. Who are you? I have no enmity with you. Why are you attacking me? Zhuowen's breathing was hurried. His heart was gripped in the palm of this man's hand. The pain transmitted caused Zhuowen to break out in cold sweat. His face was as pale as snow. In particular, this man's claws were so sharp. Zhuowen had cultivated the great Nirvana Sun to the 4th level. His physical body was extremely tough and ordinary people wouldn't be able to pierce through it. However, the strange and ugly man in front of him was able to easily penetrate his body. Furthermore, Zhuowen also discovered that the ugly man's cultivation wasn't high. It was only about the same level as Qing. He should also be an early-stage sovereign realm warrior. Zhuowen was puzzled. How did this man, who was only at the early-stage sovereign realm, break through his physical defense? You must be puzzled right now. I'm only at the early-stage sovereign realm, but I can break through your physical defense. You don't know me, but I know you. Zhuowen's heart was in his hands. The hideous man wasn't in a hurry to kill Zhuowen. He wanted to see Zhuowen die in fear. Who are you? Zhuowen asked coldly. Haha. How dare you ask me who I am? That's right, I've already become like this, so it's no wonder you can't recognize me. Even if Lu Hantian was in front of me, I'm afraid he wouldn't be able to recognize me. The ugly man laughed coldly as he muttered to himself. The ugly man's words made Zhuowen even more confused. Who was this person? From the looks of it, he seemed to know Lu Hantian. Do you know why I was able to pierce through your body so easily? Hehe, do you really think that this old man is merely at the initial stage of the supreme stage? Back then, before my cultivation dropped, I was in the Empyrean realm. In my eyes, your physical body has too many flaws. Finding a weak point to break through is entirely possible. Zhuowen's heart was in his hands, so the ugly man was not very wary of Zhuowen. After all, as long as Zhuowen moved a little, he could immediately crush Zhuowen's heart. You used to be a Empyrean? He was shocked. No wonder this person's cultivation was not high, but he could easily break through his physical body. It turned out that this person was originally a Empyrean expert, but for some reason, his cultivation dropped to the initial stage of the supreme stage. Do you still remember the house of Marquis Baichuan? Do you still remember the disciples of the house of Marquis Baichuan that were killed by you and Lu Hantian? The house of Marquis Baichuan had stood in Muqing County for nearly 1,000 years, but it was destroyed by you and Lu Hantian leading the house of Marquis Qin. Now you know who I am, right? You also know why I want to kill you, right? The ugly man's body trembled slightly, and his expression became somewhat agitated and angry. Obviously, he had thought of something bad. Shu Lingtian? You are Shu Lingtian? As soon as the ugly man said this, Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He finally remembered this person's identity. In addition, this person only had one arm. Zhuowen was sure that this person was Shu Lingtian, the ancestor of the house of Marquis Baichuan. In the battle of the house of Marquis Baichuan, Shu Lingtian and Lu Hantian fought. In the end, Shu Lingtian was defeated and had one of his arms cut off by Lu Hantian. Blood splattered everywhere, and in the end, he used the blood escape, which had great side effects, to escape death. Although Zhuowen knew that Shu Lingtian wasn't dead, he didn't expect that Shu Lingtian would become like this. His heavenly venerate cultivation had even fallen to the initial stage of the sovereign realm. Zhuowen, do you regret it? If you and Lu Hantian had not been so ruthless, this would not have happened today. Unfortunately, all of this has happened. What's the use of regretting it? So, you'd better die. Shu Lingtian laughed sinisterly. The claw that reached into Zhuowen's back suddenly exerted force. With a plop, Zhuowen's heart was ripped out. Blood spurted out of Zhuowen's body like a fountain. Zhuowen's pupils shrank. He felt his chest empty. Then, a wave of dizziness hit him. He fell powerlessly and smashed into the ground. "Ha, little bastard, it's good that you died. Since you destroyed the house of Marquis Baichuan, I will make sure you die without a burial place." In the sky, Shu Lingtian held the still-beating heart in his hand and laughed maniacally. His eyes were filled with delight. Swoosh! Qing and Qing San came to Shu Lingtian's side. Looking at the heart in his hand and the motionless Zhuowen on the ground, they said with ugly expressions, "You killed Zhuowen?" Shu Lingtian stopped laughing. His sinister gaze converged on Qing and Qing San. He said coldly, "What? Is there a problem? Don't you know that Zhuowen has a high-grade dragon soul? The Hall Master has already ordered that we must capture him alive. You actually killed him in front of the two of us. You are courting death." Qing San's eyes were cold. Now that Zhuowen was dead, they wouldn't be able to explain themselves. He couldn't help but point at Shu Lingtian and curse. Bang! However, as soon as Qing San finished cursing, a claw instantly swept over and pierced Qing San's chest with lightning speed. Then, the claw fiercely twisted, and Qing San's heart was completely crushed under the force of the claw. Poochie! Qing San spat out a mouthful of blood. He looked at the claw that had stabbed into his chest in disbelief. He stared fixedly at Shu Lingtian and said, "You actually dared to kill me? The two of you are just trash. The two of you together couldn't take down Zhuowen. Now that I've killed Zhuowen, you blame me. If I don't kill you, who should I kill?" Shu Lingtian said sinisterly. As he spoke, he slapped his palm and completely annihilated Qing San's nascent soul. After all, Shu Lingtian was an Empyrean realm expert. His cultivation surpassed Qing and Qing San. Even though his cultivation was on par with Qing his strength far surpassed them. So, Qing didn't notice when Shu Lingtian attacked. When he recovered from his shock, Qing San's heart had already been crushed by Shu Lingtian. "Bastard! You actually dared to kill a member of our Blue Dragon Hall. You are simply going against the heavens." Qing San's death deeply agitated Qing causing him to roar loudly and flash towards Shu Lingtian with his spear. He didn't hold back in the slightest. "Your cultivations are too low." Shu Lingtian shook his head. He stomped his foot and instantly avoided Qing spear. After that, he stepped through the air repeatedly and transformed into an ethereal afterimage that instantly arrived behind Qing Poochie! Similarly, with just one move, Shu Lingtian's claw quickly reached into Qing back and instantly crushed his heart. His nascent soul was destroyed, and Qing followed in Qing San's footsteps and slowly fell to the ground. Silence. The surroundings of the open space instantly fell into a strange silence. Everyone stared blankly at the corpses of Zhuowen, Qing San, and Qing For a moment, they forgot to make a sound. Originally, this was a battle between Zhuowen and Qing San. However, they didn't expect that halfway through, this mysterious ugly man would appear in front of them. Not only did he successfully sneak attack and kill Zhuowen, but even Qing and Qing San were instantly killed. Feeling the countless gazes around him, Shu Lingtian frowned slightly and shouted indifferently, "What are you looking at? If you don't want to die, scram. Otherwise, no one will be left alive." As soon as these words came out, the surrounding cultivators scattered like birds and beasts. This ugly man was really too terrifying. Even a supreme had died in his hands, let alone them. "Zhu Kai, you stay." Zhu Kai, who was originally standing not far away, also wanted to leave with the surrounding crowd. However, he was suddenly stopped by Shu Lingtian. His body stiffened and he quickly smiled flatteringly. "Lord Shu, I wonder why you stopped me." Zhu Kai naturally heard the conversation between Zhuowen and the ugly man clearly. He knew that the man in front of him was the ancestor of the Marquis of Baichuan, Shu Lingtian, who had already been destroyed. Back then, Shu Lingtian was a heavenly venerate powerhouse. Although his cultivation had dropped to the initial stage of the Supreme Being realm, his strength was still far above a Supreme Being realm powerhouse. In front of such a powerhouse, Zhu Kai was simply an ant. In a moment, Qing Yang and Qing Yi will come. You can be a witness for this old man. Just say that Zhuowen fought with Qing Er and Qing San and finally perished together. Do you understand? Xu Lingtian said indifferently. When Zhu Kai heard this, he felt a knot in his heart. However, he had no choice but to obey Xu Lingtian's words. He knew that if he dared to refuse, he would be faced with Xu Lingtian's merciless claw. Xu Lingtian was also very smart. He knew that if he escaped like this, it was very likely that he would arouse Qing Yang's suspicion. At that time, the Blue Dragon Hall would likely send powerhouses to capture him. If Xu Lingtian still had the strength of a heavenly venerable, he would naturally not be afraid of the Blue Dragon Hall's wanted list. However, his strength was now too weak. He was only at the initial stage of the Supreme. Although he was strong, he was only comparable to a late-stage Supreme. Now that the Blue Dragon Hall had suddenly lost 3 Azure Dragon Guards, it would inevitably cause a commotion. At that time, if he just left like this, he would inevitably be remembered by the Blue Dragon Hall. It was better to stay here openly and firmly believe that Zhuowen, Qing Er, and Qing San perished together. The people around the open space had basically all left. Only Xu Lingtian and Zhu Kai were still standing silently in the same place. Xu Lingtian deliberately dressed himself in a sorry state to show that he had just fought a great battle. Whoosh whoosh. After a while, 2 more figures flew out from the Shuiyu area. These 2 figures were naturally Qing Yang and Qing Yi. At this moment, Qing Yang's hands were already able to move freely. However, if he wanted to use Yuan Li, it was still far from enough. He would need to recuperate for a period of time to completely recover. Thinking about his arms that were almost crippled, Qing Yang's resentment towards Zhuowen became even more intense. He wished that Zhuowen would die without a burial place. Chapter 792. Emperor Qing's arrival. Qing Yi was tall and sturdy with a resolute face. He had thick eyebrows and big eyes. At first glance, he looked like a simple and honest man with an innocent face. If one was deceived by Qing Yi's appearance, one would suffer greatly. After all, Qing Yi was the leader of the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards. His strength was far greater than the other 3 Azure Dragon Guards. Regardless of strength or methods, he was extremely outstanding. His simple and honest appearance was only a disguise. Half an incense stick's worth of time has already passed. Qing Er, Qing San, and Qing Sai should have completely captured Zhuowen by now. Qing Yi walked side by side with Qing Yang as he spoke indifferently. Yes. With the 3 of them, Zhuowen won't be able to escape no matter how powerful he is. Qing Yang nodded with a trace of anticipation in his eyes. If Zhuowen was really captured alive, as long as he didn't kill Zhuowen, he could torture him however he wanted. Soon, the 2 of them arrived at the open space. However, when they landed on the open space, they were stunned. This was because Qing Er, Qing San, and Qing Sai were all lying on the ground, motionless and silent. Moreover, what shocked Qing Yang and Qing Yi even more was that there was a hole on the other side of the open space. There was also a figure lying in the hole. This person was lying on his back, and his back was empty. His heart had been dug out. Qing Yang was naturally familiar with this person. It was their target, Zhuowen. In other words, Qing Er, Qing San, Qing Sai, and even Zhuowen were all dead. What's going on? Instantly, Qing Yang and Qing Yi locked their cold gazes on the open space. Xu Lingtian was still standing, and Zhu Kai was trembling. Xu Lingtian hurriedly crawled over to Qing Yang. He was in a sorry state, and his eyes were filled with fear. He hurriedly said, "Lord Qing Yang, Zhuowen is too heaven-defying. Although he only has the strength of a half-step into the Xuanzuan realm, the strength he displayed is already comparable to an early-stage sovereign." Lord Qing Sai was the first to arrive here. He didn't expect Zhuowen to be so strong. He was actually attacked by him and died just like that. Later, Qing Er and Qing San rushed over. When they saw Lord Qing Sai die, they were furious and joined forces to besiege Zhuowen. However, this Zhuowen was really amazing. He actually transformed into a 4-headed, 8-armed form and displayed terrifying mental energy. He perished together with the 2 lords. Qing Yang's eyes narrowed, and his expression became increasingly cold. He suddenly stared fixedly at Xu Lingtian and said, Zhuowen, perish together? When they were fighting, why didn't you help? Shu Lingtian's eyes, Shu Lingtian's of Qing, and Qing San, Qing was, Shu Ling, and Qing and Qing San told me not to help. So, I, Qing, and Qing and Qing San didn't. As he spoke, Shu Lingtian pointed at Zhu Kai behind him with his right hand and spoke in a rather flustered manner. Chen Qingyang's gaze converged on Zhu Kai as he asked coldly. Zhu Kai's entire body trembled, and his teeth chattered. Thinking of Shu Lingtian's instructions, he gritted his teeth and said, "It is indeed as this lord said." Zhuowen and the 3 azure dragon guards perished together. Rumble. Qingyang's eyes were cold. He suddenly stretched out his right hand, and a terrifying azure energy surged out. It turned into a huge dragon claw and crushed down. "No. Don't kill me." The dragon claw instantly smashed onto Zhu Kai's body. Immediately, blood splattered everywhere. Under the power of the dragon claw, Zhu Kai turned into a bloody mist. Seeing Qingyang's merciless attack, Shu Lingtian's pupils shrank. Qingyang's actions clearly showed that he didn't believe Zhu Kai's words at all. "Are you willing to become an azure dragon guard?" Clapping his hands, Qingyang's gaze converged on Shu Lingtian. His actions had already shown that he didn't believe such words at all. However, Qingyang didn't intend to pursue the matter, nor did he ask for an answer. Instead, he asked Shu Lingtian if he was willing to become an azure dragon guard. Shu Lingtian's eyes flickered. At this moment, he could clearly feel that Qing Yi, who was beside Qingyang, was constantly gathering his aura. He knew that if he wasn't willing, Qing Yi would immediately capture or even kill him. Although Shu Lingtian was a heavenly venerate, his cultivation had dropped too much. He was only at the early stage of the sovereign stage. A cultivator like Qing Yi could be destroyed with a wave of his hand in the past. However, he was no match for Qing Yi now. Fighting with Qing Yi was undoubtedly an unwise decision. "I'm willing." In the end, Shu Lingtian compromised. He knew that this was Qingyang giving him a chance to live. At the same time, it was also a chance for him to serve the Blue Dragon Hall. "Good. Since you agree, then you are a member of the Azure Dragon Guard from now on. Welcome to the Blue Dragon Hall. From now on, your codename will be Qing Wu." Qing Yi suddenly laughed heartily. His simple and honest face was filled with a harmless smile, giving people a good impression of him. However, if one thought that Qing Yi was simple and honest because of his appearance, then they would suffer a great loss. After all, it was impossible for Qing Yi to become the leader of the Azure Dragon Guard without any tricks. Shu Lingtian forced a smile, but his gaze was extremely gloomy. This was far from what he had planned. Originally, he had planned to use mutual destruction as an excuse to get away from the Blue Dragon Hall's suspicion. At that time, he wouldn't need to be wanted by the Blue Dragon Hall and could go wherever he wanted. But now, Qingyang's suspicion had completely disrupted Shu Lingtian's plan, forcing him to join the Blue Dragon Hall. Although Shu Lingtian hadn't expected this situation, it wasn't bad. At this time, Shu Lingtian was planning to completely leave the Blue Dragon Hall after he completely recovered his strength as an Empyrean. Even Aoki wouldn't be able to do anything to him. Thinking of this, Shu Lingtian's heart relaxed a lot as he silently stood beside Qingyang. "Lord Qingyang, Zhuowen is dead. What should we do now?" Qing Yi asked hesitantly. "Bring him back. After all, this child has a dragon soul and his physical body is extremely powerful. Bring him back first. We can only leave him to the Hall Master to decide," Qingyang said helplessly. Although Qingyang also hoped that Zhuowen would die, this time, Aoki had specifically instructed that Zhuowen must be captured alive. But now, it seemed that capturing him alive wasn't very possible. Qing Yi nodded and took a step forward. Just as he was about to carry the motionless Zhuowen in the pit, a green light suddenly swept over and wrapped around Zhuowen like a maggot. "Who is it?" Qing Yi was shocked and felt a chill down his spine. He hurriedly took a few steps back. The green light came silently and he didn't notice at all. If someone attacked him with such a method, he was afraid that he would be in trouble. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 air-piercing sounds could be heard as 3 silhouettes appeared from the distant horizon. The one in the lead was a middle-aged man dressed in a green robe. The robe had a lifelike dragon embroidered on it, just like a real dragon. "Your Majesty Emperor Qing?" Looking at the middle-aged man in a luxurious robe with a dignified appearance, Qing Yang, Xu Lingtian and Qing Yi were shocked and hurriedly cupped their hands and bowed. Emperor Qing's gaze was calm. The two people standing beside him were none other than Grand Haohai and Grand Baihe, father and daughter. After seeing Grand Haohai and his daughter, how could Qing Yang not know that Emperor Qing's arrival was related to these two people? This Grand Haohai is really cunning. Not only did he inform the Azure Dragon Palace, he even informed the Azure Emperor. It's a pity that Zhuo Wen is already dead. He's completely worthless. Qing Yang lowered his head slightly, but his mind was active. This Zhuo Wen is dead. Emperor Qing frowned as he looked at the motionless Zhuo Wen wrapped in the green light. He naturally also noticed that Zhuo Wen's back was empty. His heart was actually gone. Obviously, it was dug out by someone. Originally, we were ordered by the Hall Master to capture Zhuo Wen. Unfortunately, this boy was arrogant and unruly and didn't care about the Blue Dragon Hall. So, we taught him a lesson. However, our Blue Dragon Hall also suffered a great loss. Except for Qing Yi, the other 3 of the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards are all dead. At this point, Qing Yang's face turned slightly ugly. The 4 great Azure Dragon Guards were the mainstays of the Azure Dragon Branch Hall. Now that 3 of them were dead, it was a great loss. I see. This Zhuo Wen is really audacious. He even dared to kill the people of the Blue Dragon Hall. He can't blame anyone for his death. Emperor Qing's gaze was calm, and no one could see through his true thoughts. However, Grand Haohai, who was following behind Emperor Qing, was ecstatic. He was happy to see Zhuo Wen die. He couldn't wait for Zhuo Wen to die. Now that Zhuo Wen was dead, how could he not be happy? As for Grand Baihe, her beautiful eyes flickered with a trace of complexity. Especially when she heard Qing Yang say that Zhuo Wen had killed 3 of the 4 great Azure Dragon Guards, her heart couldn't help but tremble. Zhuo Wen's strength was stronger than during the conferred Marquis battle. He could even kill an initial stage sovereign expert. It was a pity that he was dead now. Grand Baihe also couldn't wait for Zhuo Wen to die. However, when she found out that Zhuo Wen had really died in front of her, she couldn't feel happy. In the past, Zhuo Wen was unknown, so she naturally didn't pay attention to him. However, since Zhuo Wen's strong rise, Grand Baihe's mentality suddenly changed. The man in her fantasy should be a peerless genius who defeated countless geniuses in the world and climbed to the top, showing disdain for the heroes. Zhuo Wen's performance along the way was undoubtedly more and more in line with her inner expectations. It was even to the extent that when Zhuo Wen fought with Huangfu Wudao and caused Huangfu Wudao to be in an extremely sorry state, Grant Lily even had a trace of regret. If the Grand family didn't break the engagement, perhaps a peerless genius like Zhuo Wen would have become the son-in-law of the Grand family and become the husband of Grand Baihe. And Zhuo Wen would undoubtedly be able to lead the Grand family to a new peak. "What's wrong with me?" Grand Baihe muttered to herself in a low voice. Qing Yang stole a glance at Emperor Qing and asked, "May I know why Emperor Qing has come to the intoxicated spring pavilion? It's said that Zhuo Wen has a dragon soul in his body. Your Blue Dragon Hall should have a dragon soul detector, right? I wonder if this rumor is true?" Emperor Qing suddenly asked. Hearing this, Qing Yang hesitated for a moment before bowing and saying, "This boy does have a dragon soul. Then what's the quality of the dragon soul?" Emperor Qing continued to ask. "The dragon soul in this boy's body is very powerful. It caused the dragon soul detector to explode." Qing Yang didn't hide anything. Emperor Qing's eyes flickered as he muttered to himself, "A dragon soul above the 7th grade?" As he spoke, Emperor Qing shook his sleeve and the green light that wrapped around Zhuo Wen flew to Emperor Qing's side. Soon after, Emperor Qing broke through the sky and left. "I'm taking Zhuo Wen away. You just have to talk to Aoki." Chapter 793. Grief Bang. Qing Yang waved his right hand and a ray of green light shot out from his hand like a snake and disappeared into the horizon. I've already used a 1,000-mile sound transmission to inform the palace master of the situation here. Let's return to the Blue Dragon Hall now. As he spoke, Qing Yang brought Qing Yi and Shu Lingtian out of the Drunken Spring Pavilion. The corpses of Qing Qing San, and Qing Sai were naturally taken away under Qing Yang's orders. As Qing Yang left, the originally quiet space in the Drunken Spring Pavilion became noisy once again. Those who were scared away by Shu Lingtian returned to the open space. Everyone's eyes flickered as they looked at the messy space. Of course, the topic of their discussion was naturally Zhuowen's life and death. Most of the people present knew that Zhuowen's heart had been dug out by Shu Lingtian. It was unlikely that he would survive. What a pity. Zhuowen was the dark horse of this ranking tournament. His strength and talent were extremely terrifying. Even the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, couldn't do anything to him. It's really a pity that such a genius died just like that. Although they didn't see Zhuowen's corpse in the open space, they all knew that Zhuowen definitely wouldn't survive. Moreover, this news would probably spread like wildfire in the Imperial City tomorrow. Thousands of miles away from the Drunken Spring Pavilion, two terrifying figures clashed as terrifying auras erupted. The surrounding space collapsed and shattered as the two exchanged blows. Bang! A circular wave of air spread out as the two figures each retreated several hundred feet. They stabilized their bodies and stared at each other from afar. Aoki, don't force me. If anything happens to Zhuowen, I'll kill you. Lu Hantian said with a cold gaze. Aoki sneered and said, Lu Hantian, you and I are both at the peak of the heavenly sovereign stage. Do you really think that you can kill me? Lu Hantian's gaze darkened as he became even more anxious. He didn't know why, but he had a bad premonition since just now. He really wanted to rush back now. Unfortunately, Aoki was obstructing him at every turn. Whoosh! All of a sudden, a green light shot over from afar and landed in Aoki's hand. Sound transmission from 1,000 miles away. Looks like Qing Yang and the others have succeeded. Aoki's eyes revealed a trace of joy. He sent his consciousness into the green light in his hand. Immediately, a stream of information was transmitted into his mind. After a while, Aoki slowly opened his eyes. His gaze was gloomy. Lu Hantian, let's stop here today. I won't bother you anymore. Aoki's expression was unsightly as he said this. With a stomp of his foot, he turned into a stream of light and disappeared in front of Lu Hantian. Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes. With Lu Hantian's observation skills, he could naturally see the displeasure and anger in Qing Mu's eyes. It was obvious that the content of the sound transmission just now was not good news. Let's go back to the Drunken Spring Pavilion first. With a stomp of his foot, Lu Hantian also disappeared. He had been worried about Zhuowen's safety. After returning to the Drunken Spring Pavilion, Lu Hantian quickly noticed the mess in the open space of the Drunken Spring Pavilion. The uneasiness in his heart became even more intense. I wonder how Nantian and Zhuowen are doing. After saying this, Lu Hantian rushed towards the rooms in the Shuiyu area. After a while, Lu Hantian reappeared. His expression was extremely gloomy. Whether it was Zhuowen's room or the rooms of Lu Nantian and the other geniuses of Muqin County, all of them were gone. This scene made Lu Hantian's heart turn cold. Young Master Lu, are you looking for the geniuses of Muqin County? A clear and melodious voice rang out. Lu Hantian looked over and saw an enchanting woman slowly walking out from one of the rooms. Do you know where they went? Lu Hantian asked with a frown. Mother Shu looked around vigilantly and then said softly, Come with me. Right now, the people of Blue Dragon Hall are looking for your Muqin County. It's best not to be too conspicuous. Lu Hantian's eyes narrowed. It seemed that in order to capture Zhuowen, the Blue Dragon Hall wouldn't even let the geniuses of Muqin County go. How hateful. After saying this, Mother Shu carefully led Lu Hantian towards an inconspicuous back door of the Drunken Spring Pavilion. 100 meters away from the back door was an abandoned and dilapidated house. This was a slum area where the homeless beggars gathered. On the dilapidated path, there was even a pungent stench that permeated the air. Lu Hantian and Mother Shu walked on the path. From time to time, they would attract the attention of the beggars on the path. After all, their clothes and temperament didn't fit in with this slum area. After turning into an alley, at the end of the alley, there was a low house. Inside the house, there was still a dim oil lamp. Creak. The door of the house was suddenly opened. A young man with a dispirited expression walked out. His eyelids were drooping, and there was an unconcealable sadness in his eyes. "Itao!" Lu Hantian suddenly called out. The young man's body trembled. He immediately saw Lu Hantian and Mother Shu at the door. He was startled at first, then his gaze became extremely cold. He said coldly, "Why are you here? Where did you go just now?" Lu Hantian was somewhat confused by Lu Itao's attitude. He asked, "What's wrong?" Mother Shu, who was standing beside Lu Hantian, hesitated for a moment. She gritted her teeth and said in a low voice, "Lu Nantian is dead." Hearing this, Lu Hantian was thunderstruck. He was stunned on the spot. He said in disbelief, "What did you say? Nantian is dead? Haha. Are you putting on an act in front of me? When my father was besieged by the Azure Dragon Guards, where were you? Why didn't you show up? If you were at the Drunken Spring Pavilion, then my father wouldn't have died." Lu Itao shouted somewhat hysterically. With this shout, the other geniuses of Muqin County in the house followed the sound and walked out. Naturally, they also saw Lu Hantian standing in front of the door. Many of them revealed joyful expressions. With Lu Hantian here, they didn't have to hide in the Blue Dragon Hall. "Brother Lu, don't be impulsive. If Marshal Uncle Lu was at the Drunken Spring Pavilion, he would definitely have come out. Since he didn't come out, he must have been delayed by something." Luo Xing and Qing Lian hurriedly advised. Lu Hantian said in a low voice, "Itao, I'm sorry. At that time, I was delayed by the Hall Master of the Blue Dragon Hall, Aroki, so I didn't have time. I'm really sorry." Then Nantian, he. At this point, Lu Hantian's lips and voice trembled. After all, Lu Nantian was his younger brother. How could he not be sad when he died like this? The Hall Master of the Blue Dragon Hall? When everyone heard this, they were dumbfounded. No wonder Lu Hantian didn't appear for so long. It turned out that he was delayed by Aroki. It seemed that the people of the Blue Dragon Hall had made many preparations. Lu Hantian also calmed down at this moment. He also knew that he was too agitated just now. He took out a porcelain bottle from his spirit ring and handed it to Lu Hantian. "Father's body has been cremated by me. After all, the nascent soul of the Xuanzuan realm is too weak." Father's nascent soul dissipated not long after. After receiving the porcelain bottle, the sadness in Lu Hantian's eyes became even more intense. Although the 4 Venerable Realm experts had nascent souls, they had to be at least in the Golden Venerable Realm to be able to leave the body and survive. The nascent soul of the Xuanzuan realm was too weak and couldn't exist for too long. Lu Hantian knew this better than anyone else. His gaze became even colder. Lu Hantian said coldly, "Who killed Nantian?" "Qing Sai of the Azure Dragon Guard. However, because of Zhuoan, he was killed by me." At this point, Lu Itao's gaze suddenly became extremely cold. He said, "However, the order to kill father was given by Qing Yang. Therefore, other than Qing Sai, the mastermind was Qing Yang." "Qing Yang. I will properly settle this score with this guy," Lu Hantian said with murderous intent. Lu Hantian suddenly looked around and asked doubtfully, "Where's Zhuoan?" As soon as he said this, everyone suddenly became much quieter. In fact, it was so quiet that it was terrifying. "What's wrong?" Lu Hantian had a bad feeling in his heart. "Zhuoan, he is dead," Xu Niang suddenly said softly. Lu Hantian was stunned. His body even trembled slightly. He placed his hands on Xu Niang's shoulders and said in a low voice, "How is that possible? You're saying that Zhuoan is dead?" Xu Niang frowned slightly and sighed softly. "Although I wasn't there at the time, those who were there saw with their own eyes that Zhuoan's heart was dug out by a mysterious person. I'm afraid that it's not very likely that he's still alive." Lu Itao and the other geniuses of Muqin County all revealed sorrowful expressions. Xu Niang had already told them about Zhuoan's death. They also didn't expect that Zhuowen, who had always been so strong, would actually die. They didn't even know the identity of Zhuowen's killer. Who killed Zhuowen? Was it someone from the Blue Dragon Hall? Lu Hantian asked through gritted teeth. Xu Niang shook her head and said, that person wasn't from the Blue Dragon Hall. As for who it was, I don't know either. I only know that the person who killed Zhuowen was an ugly, one-armed man who was rather old. Hearing this, Lu Hantian frowned slightly. His eyes were filled with coldness. How could he not know that ugly, one-armed man? He was one of the people who came with the Azure Dragon Guard. Was Zhuowen's body taken away by the Blue Dragon Hall? Lu Hantian asked again. Xu Niang shook her head and said, no, Emperor Qing came later and took Zhuowen away. As for what Emperor Qing wants, I'm not too sure. Emperor Qing? It seems that I have to make a trip to the Imperial City. Lu Hantian whispered with a flicker in his eyes. Lu Yitao and the others came to Lu Hantian's side. Lu Yitao said, Uncle, the Imperial City is filled with danger. I'm afraid it's not appropriate for you to go tonight. Lu Hantian shook his head and said, it's fine. Emperor Qing will give me face. As for you guys, you should leave the Imperial City as soon as possible and return to Muqin County. The Imperial City is currently in a turbulent situation. This is a place of trouble. Staying here won't do you any good. After saying this, Lu Hantian didn't stay any longer. With a leap, he disappeared into the horizon. Watching Lu Hantian leave, a commotion broke out among Lu Yitao and the others. Most of the Muqin County geniuses standing behind Lu Yitao looked at Lu Yitao. At this moment, Lu Yitao had undoubtedly become their backbone. Let's leave the Imperial City tomorrow. Uncle is right. The Imperial City is a place of trouble. There's no need for us juniors to stay here. Lu Yitao sighed and looked at Xu Niang and said, Xu Niang, I know that your Drunken Spring Pavilion has a secret way out of the Imperial City. I hope that you can help us leave the Imperial City this time. Oh, why should my Drunken Spring Pavilion help your Muqin County? Xu Niang said with a smile. Because Lu Hantian is my uncle, Lu Yitao said meaningfully. Hearing this, Xu Niang's beautiful eyes flickered. She sighed and said, it seems that your eyes are even sharper than Lu Nantian. Then I'll help you one more time. Tomorrow morning, I'll arrange for you to leave the Imperial City. Chapter 794. Extracting the dragon's soul. Late at night, the Imperial City was heavily guarded. Teams of armored soldiers guarded the various checkpoints and important points of the Imperial City. A figure slowly descended at the gate. Immediately, the soldiers on both sides of the gate stopped him and shouted, Who are you? The Imperial City is not open to outsiders at night. I am Lu Hantian from Muqin County. I have something important to discuss with the Azure Emperor. I hope you can report it to him, Lu Hantian said calmly. Lu Hantian? I have never heard of you. You are not a member of the Imperial family. Leave now. The soldier at the gate said coldly. Lu Hantian narrowed his eyes. Just as he was about to flare up, the sound of horse hooves came from behind him. Then, a clear voice sounded. Let him in. Lu Hantian turned around and saw a handsome man riding a tall horse. He rode over quickly and stopped beside Lu Hantian. Lord Li Jin, since Lord Li has said so, you can go in, the soldier at the gate said respectfully as he bowed. Brother Lu, follow me in. The Qing Emperor already knew that you would come, Li Jin said with a smile. Lu Hantian nodded and said, Thank you, Brother Li. Lu Hantian did not hesitate and followed Li Jin into the depths of the Imperial City. The two of them quickly arrived at the plaza. At the end of the plaza was the Azure Emperor's throne room. At this moment, the throne room was pitch black. It was as silent as a giant dragon. Brother Lu, I can only send you here. The Azure Emperor is in the throne room. You just need to enter the throne room. After Li Jin finished speaking, he pulled on the reins and turned the horse around to leave the square. Lu Hantian's eyes flashed. The Azure Emperor's arrangement meant that he already knew that Lu Hantian would come to the Imperial City to look for him. Therefore, Lu Hantian did not hesitate and walked directly to the throne room. There was not a single speck of light in the square or the throne room. Everything was plunged into darkness, and a deathly silence pervaded the surroundings. Stepping into the hall, Lu Hantian discovered that it was even darker than the outside. It was so dark that he couldn't tell which direction he was going. Fortunately, his cultivation base was high. In this kind of pitch-black environment, he could rely on his senses to walk deeper into the hall. As he went deeper, the originally pitch-black environment gradually brightened. Finally, Zhuowen arrived at the center of the hall, where it was as bright as day. At the same time, a tall and straight figure stood there quietly with his back facing Lu Hantian like a statue. "Your Majesty Qing Di. I heard that Zhuowen was taken away by you. May I know where Zhuowen is now?" Lu Hantian's gaze focused on the figure in front of him and he suddenly asked. Slowly turning around, the Qing Emperor calmly stared at Lu Hantian. With a wave of his sleeve, a green light shot out and appeared in front of him. Within this green light was a person. Upon closer inspection, it was Zhuowen, who had been taken away by the Qing Emperor. Lu Hantian was shocked. He took a step forward and his gaze landed on Zhuowen's body within the green light. Especially when he saw the terrifying wound on Zhuowen's back, his expression turned extremely ugly. Just as Mother Shu had said, Zhuowen's back had indeed been cruelly dug out. With such a terrifying injury, Zhuowen was definitely dead. However, Lu Hantian was shocked to discover that Zhuowen was still breathing. He hurriedly said, "Your Majesty Qing Di, Zhuowen is not dead yet. Can you save him? His heart is damaged. The chances of saving him are too low. This emperor is relying on my own strength to forcefully prolong Zhuowen's life. Even so, Zhuowen won't last 3 days." The Qing Emperor shook his head and said indifferently, "Is there no other way?" Lu Hantian asked with a frown as he clenched his fists. The Qing Emperor's eyes flickered. Suddenly, he said, "There might be a way." Lu Hantian's eyes revealed a look of ecstasy. He hurriedly asked, "Your Majesty Qing Emperor, what other way is there? Follow me." The Qing Emperor waved his sleeves and led Zhuowen, who was within the green light, to the deepest part of the hall. Although Lu Hantian was filled with doubts, he still followed closely behind the Qing Emperor. The two of them soon arrived at the room where the Azure Supreme the Arch had bestowed enlightenment on the 10 geniuses. This room was very spacious, and there was an open-air space in the middle of the room. There was a huge dragon-shaped illusory image circling above, looking very majestic. Below the dragon-shaped image was an altar that was half the height of a person. When they arrived before the altar, the Qing Emperor suddenly said, "There is a dragon vein below the altar. There is a dense dragon vein aura inside. Zhuowen has a dragon soul in his body. If we can open this dragon vein and guide the dragon vein aura into Zhuowen's body, perhaps Zhuowen will be able to recover. Right now, I have to prolong Zhuowen's life at all times. It is not possible to open this dragon vein, hence, I need you to help me open the altar this time. After that, I will guide the dragon vein aura inside." At this point, the Qing Emperor looked at Lu Hantian and said, "This is the only chance to save Zhuowen." Lu Hantian's eyes flickered. He knew that there was a dragon vein in the imperial city, but he did not expect that the one controlling it was actually this unremarkable altar before him. However, what surprised Lu Hantian was that the Qing Emperor had actually revealed such an important place to him. Was the Qing Emperor not afraid that he, Lu Hantian, would leak it? "If you are unwilling, I will not force you." The Qing Emperor's eyes were calm, and there was not the slightest change in them. Lu Hantian gritted his teeth and said, "If I can save Zhuowen, what's wrong with opening the altar?" As he spoke, Lu Hantian stepped forward and arrived at the altar in an instant. He looked at the Qing Emperor and asked, "What do I need to do?" "It's very simple. You just need to place your hand on the floating crystal on the altar and channel the origin energy in your body into it. However, this will require an extremely large amount of origin energy to support it. When the time comes, you must be mentally prepared." The Qing Emperor said calmly, "No problem. Since that is the case, let's begin." Lu Hantian did not hesitate any longer. He activated the origin energy in his body and channeled it into the crystal in his hand. Instantly, The crystal in his hand emitted a terrifying and dazzling light. The light was extremely dazzling. Finally, it turned into a pillar of light that shot up into the sky and surged into the dragon-shaped shadow in the sky. The dragon-shaped shadow roared and swooped down. Its dragon claws, which were as large as hills, crushed downward. Instantly, a huge black hole appeared in the center of the hall not far from the altar. This black hole was bottomless. It was like an abyss. A resounding dragon roar resounded. Following which, waves of dazzling dragon vein energy gushed out from the black hole. Looking at the dragon vein energy that was gushing out continuously, the Qing Emperor's eyes revealed a trace of joy. His right hand formed a claw, and the dragon vein energy that was gushing out immediately followed his guidance and circled around him. Your Majesty Qing Di, you can start saving Zhuowen now. On the altar, Lu Hantian was panting and his face was pale. The altar had absorbed a large amount of origin energy from his body, causing him to be extremely weak. Of course, the Qing Emperor revealed a sinister smile. His right hand formed a sword and pointed at Zhuowen's forehead. Under the guidance of the Qing Emperor, strands of dragon vein energy gushed into Zhuowen's forehead. Seeing that the Qing Emperor had indeed made a move to save Xiao Chen, Lu Hantian heaved a sigh of relief. Just as he was about to leave the altar, he realized that a four-sided barrier had appeared around the altar unknowingly, preventing him from leaving. Lu Hantian slammed his right hand on the barrier. There was a muffled sound as he took a few steps back. He looked at the barrier in front of him gloomily. His attack actually did not cause any damage to the barrier at all. Your Majesty, what is the meaning of this? Lu Hantian's eyes were gloomy as he stared at the Qing Emperor in front of him. His voice was cold. Nothing. This is just to prevent you from interfering with my work. The Qing Emperor pressed his right hand on Zhuowen's forehead. Strands of dragon vein energy entered Zhuowen's forehead, causing the veins on Zhuowen's forehead to bulge. His face revealed a pained expression. What did you do to Zhuowen? Lu Hantian's expression changed when he saw the expression on Zhuowen's face. Haha. Lu Hantian, are you really so naive to think that the dragon vein energy can save Zhuowen's life? Let me tell you the truth. The dragon vein energy can extract the dragon soul in Zhuowen's body. If I can obtain Zhuowen's dragon soul, I will have a chance of improving my cultivation. The Qing Emperor suddenly laughed out loud. His originally calm eyes were now filled with fervor. Qing Yang had said that the dragon soul in Zhuowen's body was at least grade 7. If he could obtain such a high-grade dragon soul, it would be extremely beneficial to the Qing Emperor. Bastard! Have you never thought of saving Zhuowen's life from the beginning? Lu Hantian shouted angrily. The Qing Emperor shook his head and said indifferently, I'm just making the best use of it. Zhuowen's identity as a descendant of the Riker family has been exposed. He will definitely be wanted by the Blue Dragon Hall in the future. Moreover, his heart has been dug out. If I hadn't used my own strength to protect his heart, he would have died long ago. Since he is going to die anyway, it's worth it to contribute the dragon soul. The Qing Emperor's smile widened. Lu Hantian was enraged. He repeatedly hammered the walls. Unfortunately, the walls in front of him were too sturdy. He couldn't break through the walls at all. He could only watch as the Qing Emperor separated the dragon soul from Zhuowen's body. The Qing Emperor no longer cared about the furious Lu Hantian. He had specially set up the 4 walls for Lu Hantian. Even if the Lu Hantian was at his peak, it would be difficult for him to break through the walls, let alone the Lu Hantian who had exhausted most of his origin energy. What a strong soul power! The dragon soul in Zhuowen's body is not simple. With the help of the dragon vein energy, the Qing Emperor easily detected the dragon soul hidden in the depths of Zhuowen's mind. Roar! A clear dragon's roar suddenly rang out. Following which, the Qing Emperor's right hand jerked violently. An extremely strange ink-black light shot out from between Zhuowen's eyebrows. The dense ink-black light shot up into the sky and turned into a thick ink-black fog. Following which, the fog suddenly exploded. A huge black dragon that was thousands of feet long swept out from the fog. Its teeth were cold, and its black scales were like a forest. On the huge dragon's spine, 3 pairs of black dragon wings were spread out. It rode the wind and stood upright. Chapter 795. Xiao Hei's real body. The dragon's body was thousands of feet long as it hovered above the throne room. It looked mighty and domineering, and its black dragon scales emitted a piercing cold light. Both Lu Hantian and the Lotus the Arch were stunned when they saw the huge black dragon in the sky. They had not expected the dragon soul in Zhuowen's body to be so mighty. The black dragon's body faintly emitted a terrifying aura that even made the Lotus the Arch tremble slightly. This was not because the black dragon was stronger than the Lotus the Arch, but because this black dragon was of a higher level. It was an aura that was invisibly emitted. It's indeed an extraordinary dragon soul. The Azure Supreme the Arch was overjoyed. The Azure Supreme the Arch felt that this black dragon was extremely powerful. This was definitely an extremely high-level dragon soul. If he could make this dragon soul his own, his strength would increase tremendously. Your master is hopeless. Once he dies, you will disappear with him. Rather than disappearing, why don't you follow me? I can bring you a glorious future. The Lotus the Arch raised his head and said with a fervent look in his eyes. The huge black dragon looked down at the Lotus the Arch and said in a majestic voice, "A dragon soul is innate. Do you think it's possible to graft it onto your body?" The black dragon's words stunned the Lotus the Arch. Not only did this black dragon have intelligence, but it could also speak. The Lotus the Arch immediately realized that this black dragon was extraordinary. His desire to obtain this black dragon grew even stronger. Who said it's impossible? As long as you sign a contract with me, you can attach yourself to my consciousness and become my dragon soul. As he spoke, the Lotus the Arch waved his sleeve, and a scroll appeared in his hand. He said calmly, "This is a contract scroll. As long as you sign this contract with me, you can leave Zhuowen's body and graft yourself onto mine." The black dragon's eyes narrowed as it said calmly, "I didn't expect you to have a contract scroll. This should be an ancient item. However, do you think I'm a fool? If I sign this contract, won't I become your servant?" The corners of the Lotus Emperor's mouth curled into a smile, and he said, "Do you have a choice? This Zhuowen won't be able to hold on for much longer. If you don't choose me, you will disappear along with this Zhuowen. Are you willing to disappear just like that?" The smile on the Lotus the Archer's face deepened. He was very confident. After all, Zhuowen would not last long in his current state. The Lotus the Arch knew that this black dragon would make the right decision. "It seems that you are very confident. However, I'm afraid that this Dragon Lord's choice will disappoint you." The black dragon fiercely roared and instantly swooped down. With a wave of its huge dragon claw, it grabbed Zhuowen and pulled him into its claw. Soon after, it suddenly plunged into the huge black hole in the hall. You want to leave? Not so easy. This Zhuowen is dead for sure. It's useless for you to take him away. The Lotus Emperor snorted coldly and took a step forward. A terrifying green force swept out from his body like a violent storm. Then, he struck out with his palm in an attempt to stop the black dragon from entering the black hole. The black dragon's eyes were cold as it stretched out its huge dragon claw, which was surrounded by a terrifying black fog, and also struck toward the Lotus Emperor. Boom! The Lotus Emperor smashed the black dragon's claw with irresistible force. Then, the Lotus Emperor leaped up and tried to grab Zhuowen, who was on the black dragon's other claw. Otherwise, the black dragon would take Zhuowen away. The black dragon's eyes were filled with determination. With a toss of its dragon claw, Zhuowen was immediately thrown into the black hole. Then, it swung its huge dragon tail and attacked the Lotus Emperor. "It's useless. You are only a soul body, and you are so weak. You are no match for me at all. Even though I don't know why you tossed Zhuowen into the dragon vein, as far as I'm concerned, Zhuowen is already dead." The Lotus Emperor snorted coldly. His right hand turned into a claw and a terrifying green force swept out and hit the black dragon's tail heavily. An ear-piercing explosion sounded and the black dragon's tail was instantly smashed into pieces by the Lotus Emperor. However, the Lotus Emperor was also forced to retreat under the aftermath of this force. His gaze became extremely grave. The black dragon's huge body had become increasingly dim after a few exchanges with the Lotus Emperor. Taking advantage of the Lotus Emperor's retreat, It roared and immediately turned into a wisp of black fog and entered the black hole. Damn it! The Lotus Emperor came to the entrance of the black hole and looked at the pitch-black abyss below. His eyes flickered. The dragon vein was deep below. Although the Lotus Emperor's strength was terrifying, he was not qualified to enter the dragon vein. After all, the vast dragon vein energy inside was extremely repulsive to him. Furthermore, Zhuowen had the dragon soul. Not only was he not repulsed, but he was also nourished by the dragon vein energy. This was why only experts with the dragon soul could open up the dragon vein. Your Majesty Lotus Emperor, it seems like you have worked for nothing. Lu Hantian, who was above the Four Directions barrier, mocked the Lotus Emperor gloatingly. When the Lotus Emperor had deceived him and used the dragon vein energy to strip Zhuowen of his dragon soul, Lu Hantian had already lost all goodwill towards the Lotus Emperor. Naturally, he would not have any respect for him. Humph. Lu Hantian, you seem to be very happy that I have failed. The Lotus Emperor's gaze turned slightly and focused on Lu Hantian. His face was filled with coldness. With a wave of his sleeve, the barrier around Lu Hantian was instantly broken by the Lotus Emperor. Shortly after, the Lotus Emperor took a step forward and instantly appeared in front of Lu Hantian. Looking at the Lotus Emperor, Lu Hantian's expression changed drastically. He took a step forward and instantly condensed countless blood-colored spear shadows, forming an extremely terrifying spear intent domain around him. You are too weak. The Lotus Emperor shook his head and slowly stretched out his right hand. He gently pressed it on Lu Hantian's spear intent domain. With a cracking sound, the spear intent domain instantly shattered and turned into dust. Poochie. Lu Hantian coughed up a mouthful of blood as he staggered back, his body unsteady. I will not kill you first. I will only seal your cultivation. A cold voice came from behind Lu Hantian, following which, a hand suddenly slammed onto Lu Hantian's back. In an instant, a surge of yuan energy invaded Lu Hantian's body, causing the yuan energy in his body to stop flowing. His meridians seemed to be frozen, and he was unable to use his yuan energy. Lotus Emperor, why are you doing this? Feeling the sealed yuan energy in his body, Lu Hantian's expression changed slightly. Because you know too much. You know the method to open the dragon vein here and the contract scroll on me. Therefore, I will not let you leave the throne room without worry. Therefore, you should stay in the palace's dungeon for the rest of your life. The Lotus Emperor's gaze was indifferent. With a wave of his sleeve, he brought Lu Hantian out of the throne room and rushed towards the palace's dungeon in the depths of the imperial city. The Lotus Emperor did not intend to let Lu Hantian go. After all, Lu Hantian knew the method to open the dragon vein and the contract scroll on him. How could the Lotus Emperor be at ease? The Lotus Emperor had inadvertently obtained the contract scroll from an ancient ruin. This scroll was an extremely rare existence even in the ancient times. If news of it were to spread, there was no guarantee that some terrifying experts in the Eastern Land would come to the Qing Empire to snatch it. In the Blue Dragon Hall, Oroki sat on the throne with an ugly expression. He stared at Qing Yang, Qing Yi, and Shu Lingtian below him. 3 of the Azure Dragon Guards are dead. Even the most important Zhuowen is dead. Qing Yang, what are you doing? Oroki berated loudly. Qing Yang lowered his head and did not explain. He knew that if he explained now, it would only make things worse. Therefore, he chose to remain silent. Seeing that Qing Yang was silent, Oroki snorted and continued, what about Zhuowen's body? Palace Master, Zhuowen's body was taken away by the Lotus Emperor, Qing Yang said carefully. When Oroki heard this, he frowned slightly. He had not expected the Lotus Emperor to interfere. Should we ask the Lotus Emperor for him? Qing Yang glanced at Oroki secretly and asked softly. No need. Since the Lotus Emperor wants to go, we don't have to interfere. Oroki shook his head and said plainly. Suddenly, Shu Lingtian stepped forward and said in a low voice, Palace Master, since Zhuowen is a descendant of the Riker, it means that his family contains the bloodline of the Riker. Why don't we? Qingwu is right. Since Zhuowen is a descendant of the Riker, it is obvious that the Zhuo family in Muqin County are all descendants of the Riker. If we capture the Zhuo family and hand them over to the main hall, it will be considered a great achievement. Qing Yang quickly added. Aoki nodded and said, I heard that the Zhuo family is only a small family in Muqin County. Qing Yang, you go and make the arrangement. We don't want to capture the Zhuo family like this. Qing Yang quickly cupped his hands and said, Rest assured, Palace Master. This time, Qing Yang will bring the Zhuo family back to the Blue Dragon Hall. Millimeter, you can leave now. Remember to capture him alive. He is much more valuable alive than dead. Qing Mu waved his hand and instructed in a somewhat cold manner. Qing Yang quickly acknowledged and left the main hall with Qing Yi and Shu Ling Tian. The next day, before the warm sun rose, Viatao and the other geniuses in Muqin County secretly left the imperial city under Mother Shu's arrangements. At the same time, the news of Zhuowen's death spread like wildfire in the imperial city. It caused an uproar and everyone in the city knew about it. A peerless genius fell just like that. What a pity. I heard that Zhuowen is a descendant of the Riker. This secret was discovered by the Blue Dragon Hall, so they sent people to encircle Zhuowen. The power of the Blue Dragon Hall is not something that the 5 great families can compare to. They are much stronger. Under the encirclement of the Blue Dragon Hall, Zhuowen will not be able to escape death in the end. In a restaurant, the people sitting at the table were fiercely discussing the matter of Zhuowen. Most of them were wringing their hands and sighing. Not only were they sighing over the fall of a peerless genius like Zhuowen, but they were also regretting that the final battle between Zhuowen and Huangfu Wudao in 2 days would probably be aborted. Originally, many people were looking forward to another battle between Zhuowen and Huangfu Wudao. Now, it seemed that it was unlikely to happen. Chapter 796. Transplanted heart. Among the old man and young man sitting at the table drinking wine, the young man frowned and said, Zhuowen is actually a descendant of the Riker. No wonder the Blue Dragon Hall sent experts to kill him. Is Zhuowen really dead? The young man carried a large blade on his back and his eyes shone brightly. He was Guo Sheng, one of the top 10 on the Green Emperor board. Opposite him was his master, Heavenly Sovereign Domineering Blade. This news should be true. It is said that the 4 great Green Dragon Guards of the Blue Dragon Hall, except for Qing Yi, have all died at the hands of Zhuowen. Zhuowen also perished together with them, Heavenly Sovereign Domineering Blade said. He killed 3 of the 4 great Green Dragon Guards. How terrifying. Guo Sheng's eyes narrowed and he couldn't help but feel shocked. He knew how powerful the Green Dragon Guards were. The weakest of them was at the peak of the Xuanzuan realm, while the strongest was at the initial stage of the Golden Venerate realm. They were considered the upper echelons of the Green Dragon Branch Hall. However, Zhuowen had killed 3 of them. Zhuowen was indeed terrifying. It was a pity that he had died because of this. It seems like the Heavenly Marquis position will fall into Huangfu Wudao's hands in 2 days. Guo Sheng shook his head and said regretfully. While everyone in the royal capital was discussing the news about Zhuowen, the main character of this event, Zhuowen, was slowly falling into the abyss. In the pitch-black abyss, darkness filled the entire place. Zhuowen was like a feather as he slowly descended. His back was still empty and fresh blood was flowing out continuously. Although Zhuowen's heart had been dug out, his physical body was too strong. In addition, the Green Emperor had been using his own power to prolong his life. At the moment, Zhuowen was still breathing. Swoosh! A black ray of light shot over and turned into a Xiaohei dog that stood on Zhuowen's body. At this moment, Xiaohei looked dispirited and its aura was weak. A hint of sorrow appeared in Xiaohei's eyes as she watched Zhuowen gradually lose his vitality. She sighed softly. Are you going to die like this, Zhuowen? Creak. Suddenly, the demon-suppressing green coffin on Zhuowen's back opened, and a pair of blood-red eyes appeared in front of Zhuowen. It was the blood demon. Don't worry. This kid won't die. When his aura completely disappears, he will be reborn. The blood devil's ancient voice slowly rang out. What do you mean by that? Can't you see that Zhuowen is dying? You, on the other hand, want him to die quickly and get a new life because of it. Xiaohei stared at Blood Demon with an unfriendly gaze, and her voice became extremely cold. The blood demon's voice was still calm and ancient. I have no reason to lie to you. This kid still has a heart in his right chest. It is a purplish-black heart. This heart is very strange. It has an extremely strong recovery ability. The Qing Emperor's attack just now was not to prolong Zhuowen's life, but to prevent this heart from recovering Zhuowen's life. The blood demon's words immediately caused Xiao Hei's eyes to light up. The Qing Emperor's previous actions were very suspicious. If the Qing Emperor really wanted to prolong Zhuowen's life, he should have thought of ways to heal Zhuowen's injuries. However, the injury on Zhuowen's chest did not heal at all in the Qing Emperor's hands. Instead, it worsened. It turned out that the Qing Emperor's talk about prolong his life was just an excuse. His real goal was to prevent Zhuowen from recovering. As for the heart that the blood demon had mentioned, Xiao Hei naturally knew that it was the heart of the Hades King that Zhuowen had obtained from the Vitality Tower. It indeed had an extremely strong recovery ability. Transplant this purplish-black heart from his right chest to his left chest and connect the source of the torn meridians. This kid's recovery should be much faster, the blood demon said calmly. Xiao Hei's eyes were filled with joy when she heard this. The blood demon's words were not without reason. Nodding her head, Xiao Hei glanced at the blood demon and said, "You are indeed the king of the blood demon clan. You are quite experienced. I am the blood demon, the embodiment of blood. I naturally know more about the body and bloodline than you do. However, I cannot see through your origins. I have encountered many members of the dragon clan in ancient times, but I have never seen a member of the dragon clan like you." The pair of blood-red eyes stared at Xiao Hei, and his voice was filled with curiosity and interest. "Haha. Knowing my identity won't do you any good. I will leave the heart transplant to you. After all, you know more than I do," Xiao Hei said ambiguously. Hearing Xiao Hei's words, the blood demon did not ask any further. After all, this was Xiao Hei's secret, and he did not have the right to ask about it. The heart transplant cannot be disturbed in the slightest. Otherwise, all my efforts will be in vain. Therefore, you have to protect me, the blood demon said calmly. "Don't worry." Xiao Hei nodded in agreement. Seeing that Xiao Hei had agreed, the blood demon did not hesitate any longer. Waves of bloody aura surged out from the demon-suppressing green coffin and gathered into a slender bloody hand. Zhuowen and the blood demon had already made an agreement. If Zhuowen's cultivation reached the Emperor realm, the blood demon would be released and regain his freedom. Therefore, this was the reason why the blood demon was helping Zhuowen. Poochie. The bloody hand penetrated deep into Zhuowen's right chest. The blood demon's control over blood was almost abnormal. Although the bloody hand had penetrated deep into Zhuowen's chest, no blood flowed out from the wound. As the bloody hand stretched out, a beating heart appeared in the bloody hand. This heart was just as the blood demon had said. It was purplish-black, and it was beating with great force. At this moment, the bloody hand's movements became very slow. It slowly removed the purplish-black heart and placed it on Zhuowen's empty left chest. This process was extremely slow. During the process of placing the heart, the blood demon was still controlling the countless meridians in Zhuowen's left chest, accurately connecting them to the purplish-black heart. This allowed the blood in Zhuowen's body to flow into the heart and form a blood circulation. This process took a whole hour. It could be said to be extremely long. In the end, the purplish-black heart in Zhuowen's left chest began to beat again. Moreover, its rate of beating gradually became faster. As the purplish-black heart's rate of beating increased, Zhuowen's originally pale face slowly became rosy. His complexion also became much better than before. This purplish-black heart is much stronger than Zhuowen's original heart. This child's recovery ability will probably become extremely terrifying. Coupled with his powerful physical body, I'm afraid that he's already an unkillable cockroach. After placing the heart, the blood demon seemed quite satisfied. His words also seemed much more relaxed and comfortable. Xiao Hei also saw the changes in Zhuowen. A trace of joy appeared in her eyes. She said to the blood demon, "Thank you so much for this time. Hee. This heart originally existed in Zhuowen's body. Even if I didn't transplant it, Zhuowen would have slowly recovered under the effects of this heart. However, this process would have been very long. Now that the heart has been transplanted into his heart meridian, it will only speed up his recovery ability. After saying that, the blood demon's voice gradually became softer. In the end, the demon-suppressing green coffin slowly closed. Xiao He nodded. The blood demon was right. Even if it didn't help with the heart transplant, with the recovery ability of the Hades King's heart, Zhuowen would have eventually recovered. However, Zhuowen had lost his real heart. His heart meridian was damaged, so the recovery process was extremely slow. With the purplish-black heart connected to his heart meridian, it would naturally speed up the recovery process. Next, we'll have to see when Zhuowen can recover. Xiao He muttered to herself as she silently looked at Zhuowen. Time passed by minute by minute. Very quickly, 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. Zhuowen still didn't show any signs of waking up. However, his face became more rosy, and his breathing became more stable. At the same time, there were still many people gathered in the plaza outside the throne room. Everyone's eyes were fixed on the floating platform in the plaza. At this moment, on the floating platform, Huangfu Wudao crossed his arms before his chest and stood there like a pine tree, whereas, there was no one before him. Although the news of Zhuowen's death had caused an uproar in the entire imperial capital, 3 days had passed. On the day of the Heavenly Marquis battle, many people were still attracted by the news. Everyone was looking forward to Zhuowen's appearance to break the news of Zhuowen's death that had caused a huge uproar in the past few days. However, everyone was disappointed when the sun was high up in the sky. Huangfu Wudao was still standing on the floating platform, and there was still no one in front of him. Zhuowen hadn't appeared today. Everyone knew that the news of Zhuowen's death that had spread 2 days ago was most likely true. Noon has passed. Zhuowen hasn't appeared as agreed. Therefore, Huangfu Wudao is the winner of this battle. Wudao, come and accept the Heavenly Marquis token. Emperor Qing stood on the high platform with the corners of his mouth slightly raised as he spoke in a clear voice. Huangfu Wudao nodded and suddenly jumped off the floating platform. His movements were not the slightest bit sluggish. He arrived in front of Emperor Qing and received the Heavenly Marquis token. Thus, the ranking battle finally ended. The ranking battle has ended. The new top 10 candidates on the Azure Emperor rankings have also been chosen. Emperor Qing flicked his finger as he spoke. Instantly, a huge scroll appeared in the air. Then, the scroll slowly unfolded, revealing the information within. Without exception, the first prince, Huangfu Wudao, was ranked first. Next were the rankings of the other geniuses. They were respectively Zhuowen, Glen Baihe, Qing Yang, Zhu Bai, Guo Sheng, Murong Zhon, Qing Ming, Huangfu Wuji, and Monk Wu Deng. In the plaza, the other top 10 geniuses had basically arrived. The reason they came was naturally because they didn't believe the news of Zhuowen's death. They hoped to see if Zhuowen would come today to fight with Huangfu Wudao. But the result disappointed them. Zhuowen didn't appear at all. Perhaps Zhuowen really might have died as the rumors said. What a pity. Looks like Zhuowen really died. Guo Sheng frowned slightly and said somewhat unnaturally. He. I think that Zhuowen should be afraid. You have to know that sometimes rumors can't be trusted. Maybe that Zhuowen deliberately made up the news of his death and then used this as an excuse to not dare come. A gloomy voice resounded, and Huangfu Wudao crossed his arms before his chest as he spoke with a cold sneer. Zhuowen isn't that kind of person. Moreover, based on the situation of the battle between Zhuowen and Huangfu Wudao 3 days ago, do you think that Zhuowen needs to be afraid of a battle? Not everyone is like you, second prince. Chapter 797. In the depths of the dragon Zhuowen slowly woke up. He felt like he had had a very long dream. In his dream, he was running tirelessly and aimlessly. When he woke up, his eyes were filled with confusion. As he looked around, Zhuowen realized that his surroundings were pitch black. However, he was quietly floating in this pitch black environment. Where is this place? Subconsciously, Zhuowen muttered. Zhuowen remembered that he was killed by Shu Lingtian's sneak attack. Now, it seemed like that wasn't the case. He could still feel his heart beating vigorously. This is the dragon vein, Xiao Hei, who was curled up in front of Zhuowen's chest, hurriedly replied with joy when she saw that Zhuowen had woken up. Dragon vein? Could it be the dragon vein under the throne room? But how did I enter this place? Zhuowen was even more confused. Ever since he was attacked by Shu Lingtian, he had fallen into a deep coma. He knew nothing about what had happened in the outside world. Xiao Hei sighed softly and told Zhuowen everything that had happened. The more Zhuowen heard, the more shocked he became. Especially when the Qing Emperor used the dragon vein energy to strip the dragon soul from his body and take it for himself. This caused Zhuowen's face to turn extremely gloomy. What happened to Big Brother Lu Hantian? Zhuowen asked coldly. Xiao Hei shook her head and said, I'm not too sure about that. However, I'm afraid that it doesn't bode well for him. Zhuowen frowned when he heard that. He felt a little uneasy. Lu Hantian was indeed powerful. However, no matter how powerful he was, he couldn't be a match for the Qing Emperor. Therefore, Zhuowen was very worried about Lu Hantian's safety. What made Zhuowen even more resentful was that the Azure Supreme the Arch, as the ruler of the Qing Xian Empire, not only did he not think of ways to save him, Zhuowen, but he even wanted to strip the dragon soul from Zhuowen's body. Zhuowen was already extremely weak and on the verge of death. If the dragon soul was stripped away, he would definitely die. Emperor Qing did not care about Zhuowen's life at all for the sake of the dragon soul. However, how did the Blue Dragon Hall and Emperor Qing know that I have a dragon soul and that I'm a descendant of the Rika bloodline? Zhuowen asked with a frown. I'm afraid that it has something to do with Grand Haohai. When Emperor Qing came, Grand Haohai and Grand Haohai were behind him. Furthermore, your father Zhuo Xiaotian has a good relationship with Grand Haohai. I'm afraid that Grand Haohai knows that your father is a descendant of the Rika bloodline. Xiao Hei's eyes flashed as she analyzed the situation in an orderly manner. The Blue Dragon Hall and Emperor Qing did not target Zhuowen previously. However, they suddenly came to the Drunken Spring Pavilion 3 days ago. Everything was too sudden. Zhuowen did not believe that no one had tipped them off. Zhuowen's eyes darkened when he heard that. Xiao Hei's words were not without reason. The Grand Haohai clan had a good relationship with the Zhuo family. They might really know such secrets. In addition to the Blue Dragon Hall and Emperor Qing's sudden actions, it was obvious that Grand Haohai was related to this matter. This Grand Haohai is trying to kill me by every means possible. It's really detestable. The Grand Haohai clan, the Blue Dragon Hall, and Emperor Qing. I, Zhuowen, will not let this matter rest, Zhuowen said coldly. At this point, Zhuowen suddenly glanced at Xiao Hei and asked, Xiao Hei, do you have any way for me to escape from the dragon vein? There's no need to be so anxious. This dragon vein is an opportunity for you. You're so weak now. You'll only be asking for trouble if you go out. It's better for you to break through to the Xuanzuan realm in this dragon vein, Xiao Hei said unhurriedly. Zhuowen's eyes lit up when he heard that. Xiao Hei was right. The reason why Grand Haohai and the Blue Dragon Hall wanted to kill him was mainly because he, Zhuowen, did not have a strong force or strength. If he had enough strength, would the Grand Haohai clan and the Blue Dragon Hall dare to provoke him? Strength. Zhuowen clenched his fists. He had an unconcealable desire for strength at this moment. Now that you're awake, let's accelerate our descent. This dragon vein is extremely deep. I wonder how deep it is. Xiao Hei nodded. Zhuowen did not waste any time. Ever since he transplanted the purple-black heart, he felt that his body was filled with endless energy. It was as if he had an inexhaustible strength. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. In an instant, the speed of Zhuowen's descent reached an extremely terrifying level. In the darkness, he was like an illusory shadow. After half a day, Zhuowen finally reached the bottom of the abyss. When Zhuowen's feet touched the ground, the smile on his face became even wider. Looking around, he realized that he was in an extremely wide natural cave. On the walls of the cave, there were uneven moonstones. The cold brilliance shone brightly in the dark cave. Around the cave, there were 5 entrances. The depths of the entrances were extremely dark as if there was no end. Which of the 5 entrances was the correct one? Zhuowen frowned slightly as he stared at the 5 entrances in front of him and fell into deep thought. This cave should be part of the dragon vein. The dragon vein energy here is much thicker than above. Xiao Hei floated quietly in front of Zhuowen. She took a deep breath and looked intoxicated. To a dragon soul like Xiao Hei, the dragon vein energy was definitely nourishing. However, Zhuowen also realized that the dragon vein energy in the cave seemed to be repelling him and wanted to push him out. Fortunately, Xiao Hei was in front of him and the dragon vein energy was as obedient as a baby. It seemed that too much dragon vein energy was not beneficial to martial artists. Instead, it would repel martial artists and even harm them. No wonder Xiao Hei had said that only martial artists with dragon souls could enter the dragon vein. Otherwise, even an Emperor realm martial artist like Emperor Qing would not be able to enter the dragon vein so easily. Kid, don't worry. With me around, the dragon vein energy will not harm you. On the contrary, you can make use of a small portion of the dragon vein energy to refine it and turn it into your own yuan power. Xiao Hei saw the strange look on Zhuowen's face and chuckled. She waved her claws and sent a portion of the dragon vein energy into Zhuowen's glabella. A large amount of dragon vein energy was harmful to martial artists. However, a small amount of dragon vein energy was extremely beneficial to martial artists. Back then, when Emperor Qing bestowed enlightenment to the top 10 geniuses on the Azure Emperor leaderboard, he had used the Azure Dragon energy formed by the dragon vein energy to channel it into the top 10 geniuses' bodies so that they could refine it and increase their cultivation. Zhuowen's eyes were filled with joy as he felt the benefits of the dragon vein energy. It's still too early to be happy. I have already said that this dragon vein is definitely not simple. Let's explore it first. Xiao Hei said lazily. Zhuowen nodded when he heard that. Then, he looked at the leftmost entrance of the 5 and smiled bitterly. There was not much difference between the 5 entrances. It was impossible for Zhuowen to know which entrance was the real one. Hence, he could only use the stupidest method to test them one by one. Swoosh! In an instant, Zhuowen took a step forward and disappeared into the depths of the leftmost entrance. After a while, Zhuowen came out of the hole again and was covered in dust. It was indeed wrong. There are actually traps inside. After walking out, Zhuowen's gaze was somewhat gloomy as he muttered to himself. The leftmost entrance was a dead end. What made Zhuowen feel even more helpless was that there was actually a rather troublesome mechanism and trap inside. If it wasn't for his strong physical body and Xiao Hei's warning, Zhuowen wouldn't just be in a sorry state right now. It was very likely that he would be severely injured. Try the next entrance. This time, you must be careful. Xiao Hei cautioned him seriously. Zhuowen nodded and looked at the second entrance from the left. At this moment, his movements were much more cautious and his speed was much slower than before. After a while, Zhuowen came out of the entrance again with a gloomy expression. The second entrance was also incorrect. Following that, Zhuowen tried to enter the third and fourth entrances. As Zhuowen was much more cautious, although there were indeed traps inside, Zhuowen was much more relaxed than the first time. After retreating from the fourth entrance, Zhuowen's gaze finally landed on the fifth entrance. This was the last entrance. Since the first 4 entrances were dead ends, then the fifth entrance was probably the correct one. Let's go in. This entrance should lead to the core of the dragon vein. Xiao Hei stood on Zhuowen's shoulder and said excitedly. Nodding, Zhuowen took a step forward and turned into an afterimage, instantly entering the fifth entrance. Inside the entrance was a rather dark corridor, surrounded by low oval-shaped walls. The moment one entered, it gave off a dilapidated and low feeling. Zhuowen's speed was neither fast nor slow. At the same time, he was constantly on guard against his surroundings. After experiencing the traps at the first 4 entrances, Zhuowen naturally had to be cautious of the fifth entrance. However, what surprised Zhuowen was that after walking for an hour, there were no traps in the corridor that had been triggered. Looks like the real entrance doesn't have any traps. Kid, you can speed up now. I can feel that this corridor is very deep. With your current speed, I don't know how long it will take for you to completely walk out of this corridor. Xiao Hei's eyes flickered as she whispered into his ear. Zhuowen did not object. His hands changed the seal, and suddenly, 3 pairs of lightning wings grew out of his back. His speed was many times faster than before. Like a bolt of lightning, he flew straight into the depths of the corridor. Just as Xiao Hei had guessed, the 5th entrance was the correct entrance. There were indeed no traps inside. Zhuowen flew all the way as fast as lightning. After another hour, Zhuowen discovered that there were strands of dazzling white light in front of him. His eyes immediately revealed a look of joy. The exit is right in front. Chapter 798. 81 Dragon Aura. In front of Zhuowen was a huge natural cave. This cave was many times bigger than the one that Zhuowen had entered. What shocked Zhuowen even more was not the scene in front of him. That was because the bottom of the huge cave was filled with magma. At a glance, it looked like a huge and terrifying sea of magma. Above the sea of magma, there were terrifying magma dragons that were tens of thousands of feet long. They were rolling around continuously, as if there were tens of thousands of dragons fighting for supremacy. It was so exciting that Zhuowen could not help but be stunned on the spot. In the sky above the sea of magma, there were so many magma dragons. Some were lying down, some were soaring, some were looking up at the sky, some were looking down, and all of them were displaying different postures. This scene was simply too shocking. Is this the core of the dragon vein? Zhuowen muttered to himself as he opened his mouth in an exaggerated manner. Indeed, this is the core of the dragon vein. The magma dragons in front of you are not real dragons, but the dragon aura left behind by real dragons. Xiao Hei quietly floated beside Zhuowen. She looked at the huge dragons in front of her with shock in her eyes. 81 Dragon Aura? In the sky above the sea of magma, there were a total of 81 magma dragons that were entangled with each other. They looked majestic and terrifying. Dragon Aura? What is that? Zhuowen did not know much about the dragon aura that Xiao Hei had mentioned. He could not understand it at all. Dragon's might is actually the power that belongs to a true dragon. Generally speaking, power is formless, but dragon's might is tangible. Once a true dragon appears, it will release endless dragon's might, as if it is summoning 10,000 dragons to fight for it. Xiao Hei's gaze was fixed on the 81 dragon aura above the sea of magma. She was deep in thought as she continued. Actually, when I entered the throne room previously, I could faintly feel the aura of a real dragon in this dragon vein. Now, in this dragon vein, there is actually dragon might. Clearly, this dragon might was left behind by a true dragon. In other words, this dragon vein is actually the place where a true dragon fell. Hearing this, Zhuowen's pupils constricted. This inconspicuous dragon vein was actually the place where a true dragon had fallen. Didn't that mean that the corpse of an ancient and powerful true dragon was in this dragon vein? Xiao Hei, do you know where the true dragon's corpse is in the dragon vein? Zhuowen asked Xiao Hei. Xiao Hei was a dragon herself, and her origins were mysterious. She knew much more about true dragons than he did. Since the 81 dragon aura is above the sea of magma, it means that the true dragon's corpse is below the sea of magma. Xiao Hei pointed at the sea of magma. Zhuowen's eyelids twitched as he stared at the sea of magma in front of him. His expression was a little ugly. The sea of magma was bottomless, and the temperature of the magma was extremely high. It had somewhat exceeded Zhuowen's expectations. Although Zhuowen was confident that he could dive into the sea of magma, the key was that he could not last for too long. After all, this magma was the earth core fire, and its power was comparable to earth fire. Moreover, it was such a huge sea of magma. Its power could not be underestimated. Xiao Hei, this sea of magma doesn't look shallow. Will it really be okay for me to dive in? Zhuowen's eyes flickered as he asked. Of course there will be a problem. This sea of magma is extremely deep, and the true dragon's corpse is probably at the bottom of the sea of magma. With your current strength, it is not possible for you to dive to the bottom. Xiao Hei answered without hesitation. Zhuowen was speechless as he replied, then what should I do? The dragon vein energy here is extremely rich. Cultivate here for a period of time, and I will assist you. Once you break through to the Xuanzuan realm, you will have a great chance of entering the bottom of the sea of magma. Xiao He stared at Zhuowen and said indifferently, "It seems that this is the only way. Now that I am half a step into the Xuanzuan realm, I am only half a step away from the Xuanzuan realm. By relying on the dragon vein energy here, I have a great chance of successfully breaking through to the Xuanzuan realm." Zhuowen nodded. He agreed with Xiao He's suggestion. Now, Zhuowen's combat strength was extremely terrifying. He was only half a step into the Xuanzuan realm, but he could fight against an early-stage supreme being alone. If he successfully broke through to the Xuanzuan realm, Xiao He might be able to materialize. At that time, his strength would undergo an earth-shaking change. Even a golden supreme being might not be able to defeat him. Zhuowen, I will help you refine the dragon vein here. This way, your cultivation speed will be much faster. After Xiao He finished speaking, it waved its right claw. Immediately, the rich dragon vein energy above the sea of magma flowed into Zhuowen's body through its little claw. In the sky above the sea of magma, the 81 dragons seemed to have discovered Zhuowen, who had arrived at the edge of the sea of magma. However, they did not do anything. It was obvious that they were under some kind of restriction and could not approach the edge of the cliff where Zhuowen was. Zhuowen sat cross-legged and silently absorbed the dragon vein energy that Xiao He guided to him. He integrated it into his meridians and continuously increased his yuan power. The yuan power was like a river that flowed into the sea. It flowed along his meridians and finally entered Zhuowen's dantian. It made Zhuowen's dantian even rounder and fuller. Zhuowen's aura also became more vigorous. Xiao He nodded continuously as it watched Zhuowen silently refine the dragon vein energy. It did not doubt Zhuowen's talent and qualifications. Moreover, it had been some time since Zhuowen entered the Xuanzuan realm. If he had cultivated according to his original foundation, he would have been able to break through to the Xuanzuan realm within half a year. With the failure of his first attempt to break through to the Xuanzuan realm, Zhuowen's second attempt to break through to the Xuanzuan realm would definitely be successful. Now, with the surging energy of the dragon vein energy, the time to break through to the Xuanzuan realm would undoubtedly be much earlier. Time passed by minute by minute. 10 days passed by slowly. In these 10 days, Zhuowen continuously absorbed the surging energy provided by the dragon vein energy. His aura also continued to grow. When the 10th day had passed, the aura in Zhuowen's body had almost reached its peak. It was like a reservoir that was filled to the brim. Looks like he is preparing to break through. Xiao He's eyes were extremely sharp. It could tell at a glance that Zhuowen's current state was a sign that he was about to break through. Boom! A thunderous sound exploded in the air. Then, a terrifying aura spread throughout the entire cave like a tsunami. Suddenly, the air around the cave seemed to have frozen. A terrifying gravitational force gathered around the cave. Xiao He's eyes lit up when it sensed the powerful aura that appeared out of nowhere in the cave. It knew that Zhuowen was about to break through. At that moment, Zhuowen's eyes suddenly opened. A sharp light flickered in his eyes, as bright as the stars in the night sky. Then, Zhuowen slowly stood up and looked up at the sky. An even more terrifying aura surged out and gathered above Zhuowen. Finally, it formed a huge light pillar that shot up into the sky. The moment the light pillar shot up into the sky, the space above the cave distorted and a crack appeared. The light pillar shot up into the sky through the crack and swept toward the ground. The originally calm space above the throne room was now occupied by a huge light pillar. It was earth-shattering and looked extremely terrifying. Someone has broken through to the Xuanzuan realm? That's the direction of the Imperial City. In the Imperial City, everyone looked up at the sky and looked at the light pillar that pierced the sky. Their eyes were filled with envy. They wondered who in the imperial family was that had successfully broken through to the Xuanzuan realm and become a mystique supremacy. While everyone in the imperial city was guessing, many people in the imperial city were also looking up at the sky. There were even many important figures of the imperial family who were looking at the light pillar, their eyes filled with doubt. Among them, Huangfu Wuji was the most puzzled. He muttered in a low voice, "I know all the geniuses of the imperial family. There are only a few that have been in seclusion recently, but they are all quite far away from the Xuanzuan realm. So, who is the one that broke through? I have to go and take a look. As he spoke, Huangfu Wuji leapt up and rushed in the direction of the light pillar. Soon, Huangfu Wuji arrived in the skies above the throne room. What surprised him was that the pillar of light that soared into the skies did not originate from the throne room, but rather from a crack in the skies above the throne room, from which it swept out. What the hell is going on? What a strange light pillar, Huangfu Wuji said, a little bewildered. At the same time, many people from the imperial family also rushed over, including the first prince, Huangfu Wudao. Huangfu Wudao came to Huangfu Wuji's side and stared at the light pillar that rushed out from the crack. His brows furrowed. Even he found this phenomenon somewhat inconceivable. Second brother, do you know what's going on? Huangfu Wudao's eyes flashed as he asked. I don't know. This light pillar is indeed a light pillar that was produced when someone broke through the Xuanzuan realm. It's just that the way it appeared is a little strange. Huangfu Wuji frowned. His Majesty Emperor Qing has arrived. The gathered crowd suddenly burst into an uproar. From inside the throne room, a terrifying aura swept out. A blue light appeared in front of everyone and finally turned into a blue figure. It was Emperor Qing. Your Majesty Emperor Qing, what's going on? Someone actually made a breakthrough in the imperial city, but we can't see where the person is. Huangfu Wudao asked, a little surprised. At this moment, Emperor Qing's eyes flashed, and there was a trace of doubt between his eyebrows. He was also a little surprised that this light pillar had suddenly appeared in the void, and was even a little baffled. Seeing the puzzled look on Emperor Qing's face, Huangfu Wudao and Huangfu Wuji also knew that Emperor Qing was not clear about this phenomenon. This made the two of them even more puzzled. Boom! A sound like muffled thunder came from the crack in the void. At the top of the light pillar, an even larger crack appeared, and from that crack, a light figure slowly descended. A nascent soul has descended from the heavens. Chapter 799. Partial Concretization. Catcher. A crisp voice slowly resounded through the clouds. At the end of the light pillar, a huge crack suddenly appeared in the illusory void, and a figure of light slowly descended from the crack. If one looked carefully, this light figure was actually the image of a baby. This baby's face was blurry and its body was curled up. Its eyes were closed, as if it was still in the womb of a pregnant woman. Who broke through to the Xuanzuan realm? Huangfu Wuji looked at the descending nascent soul with a head full of fog. Once the nascent soul descends, we will know who broke through. Huangfu Wudao's eyes were cold as he indifferently said. At the same time, the crowd that had gathered in the imperial city also looked at the descending nascent soul with anticipation. Their thoughts were similar to Huangfu Wudao's. Once the nascent soul descended, it would be clear who the master of the breakthrough was. However, when the nascent soul descended, a crack in the Daokong space appeared. Then, the nascent soul drilled into the crack in space and completely disappeared in front of everyone's eyes. This nascent soul disappeared just like that. Everyone was stunned. Even Emperor Qing frowned. He was somewhat puzzled by this phenomenon in the sky. Your Majesty Emperor Qing, what is going on? Huangfu Wudao couldn't help but ask. Emperor Qing shook his head and lightly said, the descent of this nascent soul is quite strange. I can't find the source. Huangfu Wudao and Huangfu Wuji looked at each other and saw the astonishment in each other's eyes. Even Emperor Qing couldn't figure out the appearance of the breakthrough. Who was it that caused it? It was actually so mysterious. All right, everyone disperse. Emperor Qing waved his hand. Suddenly, the numerous powerhouses of the imperial city that had gathered outside the throne room all left. After all, Emperor Qing had spoken, so they naturally didn't dare to disobey. Huangfu Wuji originally wanted to leave with the crowd, but he was stopped by Huangfu Wudao. Huangfu Wudao said, Second brother, Emperor Qing is looking for you. Hearing this, Huangfu Wuji's eyes were filled with confusion. He walked in front of Emperor Qing and said, Your Majesty, why are you looking for me? Jioshan Academy has 5 spots for the examination. Zhuoan disappeared for no reason, so one spot is empty. This emperor intends to give this spot to you. Cyan Emperor waved his right hand and a seal of light shot into Zhuowen's palm. This was the seal of the excellent divine institute that he had given to Zhuowen and the others. This seal was the pass to enter the excellent divine institute. Thank you, Your Majesty. Huangfu Wuji was stunned for a moment before his face filled with ecstasy. He never thought that he would have the chance to obtain the qualifications to participate in the entrance examination of the Holy God Academy. All right. There's only half a year left before the assessment. Use this time to cultivate properly and don't bring shame to our imperial family. Go. With that, the Lotus Emperor turned into a beam of green light and disappeared into the depths of the throne room. Zhuowen, you didn't expect me to take your spot, did you? Hehe, you deserve it. Whether you're missing or dead, you will never have the chance to enter the excellent divine institute. Huangfu Wuji happily laughed. With a single step, he returned to the imperial city and returned to his own palace. He had to step up his training. He hoped that in half a year, he would be able to have a good performance when he went to the Divine Academy. In the depths of the throne room, there was an endless sea of magma. Terrifying waves of magma roiled about, and in the skies above the sea of magma, there were 81 dragons' auras that intertwined with each other, creating a terrifying waterfall of magma. In the skies above the sea of magma, a crack suddenly appeared. Then, a dazzling mass of light shot out. If one looked carefully, they would see that this mass of light was the nascent soul. The nascent soul's speed was extremely fast. It flew over the sea of magma, heading towards a giant rock at the edge of the sea. At this moment, there was a figure sitting cross-legged on top of the rock. It was like a statue, motionless. Whoosh! In an instant, the dazzling nascent soul drilled into the top of this figure's head. Then, the stone-like figure slowly opened its eyes. A terrifying aura gushed out, pervading the entire sea of magma. What a powerful aura! Is this the strength of a martial artist from the Xuanzuan realm? Zhuowen silently felt the power within his body transform. Especially when the nascent soul drilled into his body, he could feel an extremely cool and refreshing feeling. Then, he discovered that the nascent soul that fell from the sky followed his meridians and entered his dantian. Finally, the nascent soul attached itself to his dantian. Furthermore, Zhuowen also discovered that the moment the nascent soul entered his dantian, it actually began to absorb the origin energy in his dantian like crazy. However, while the nascent soul was absorbing the origin energy, it was also constantly releasing the nascent soul's power. The rich power of the nascent soul was much stronger and purer than Yuan energy. The two were not on the same level at all. After half an hour of conversion, the Yuan energy within his dantian had been completely absorbed by the nascent soul. However, Zhuowen did not look weak at all. Instead, he became even more energetic, as if he was full of energy. Whoosh! A ray of light shot out from the depths of Zhuowen's eyebrows. Finally, it turned into a broken jade cauldron in front of him. It was the jade cauldron armor spirit that had always existed in his sea of consciousness. Has the armor spirit materialized? As he spoke, Zhuowen's gaze landed on Xiao He, who was not far away. Zhuowen was not very interested in the materialized jade cauldron armor spirit. This jade cauldron was not very useful to him now. He was mainly looking forward to seeing how powerful Xiao He would be after she materialized. After all, Xiao He's origin was very extraordinary. The dragon soul that she materialized would definitely be very powerful. However, what made Zhuowen speechless was that Xiao He was still looking at him with her legs crossed. She was leisurely lying on a rock, as if she was enjoying the heat waves brought by the surrounding magma. Oh, kid, why are you looking at me like that? Although I am indeed handsome and powerful, you don't have to keep staring at me like that, right? Xiao He also noticed Zhuowen's gaze. She curled the corners of her mouth and said rather heartlessly. Looking at Xiao He's appearance, Zhuowen was speechless. He said somewhat helplessly, I have already successfully advanced to the Xuanzuan realm. Why haven't you revealed your true form and successfully materialized? Patting her butt, Xiao He came to Zhuowen's shoulder and chuckled, Kid, why are you in such a hurry? It's still too early to materialize this Dragon Lord. The power of the Four Supremes is still too weak for me. It's not enough to completely materialize this Dragon Lord. If you really plan to materialize, I'm afraid your vitality will be greatly damaged when the time comes. Hearing this, Zhuowen frowned slightly and asked, is it that serious? Isn't the general materialization of the armor spirit at the Four Supremes? Why do you have to be such a troublesome person? You already said that it's an ordinary armor spirit. To tell you the truth, some armor spirits that are born extremely powerful will take a longer time to materialize. The main reason is that the armor spirit is too powerful. The power of the Four Supremes is simply unable to control such a powerful armor spirit. In the end, it will only harm others and oneself. Xiao Hei shook her head. Then what cultivation level do I need to materialize you? Zhuowen asked. Xiao Hei said plainly, you need to be at least in the Emperor realm. However, I'm talking about complete materialization. Now that you're in the Four Supremes, you can partially materialize this Dragon Lord. That way, you should be able to withstand this Dragon Lord's soul power. Hearing this, Zhuowen raised his eyebrows. This was the first time he had heard of partial materialization. His face was filled with curiosity. Partial materialization of the armor spirit can't exist on its own. It must be attached to the host's body. You won't understand even if I tell you now. I'll let you experience the effects of partial materialization first. With that, Xiao Hei suddenly turned into a black light and rushed into the surface of Zhuowen's body. A strange black light covered Zhuowen's entire body. Hiss. At the same time, Zhuowen felt a heart-wrenching pain. It was as if thousands of ants were eating away at his heart. He could clearly feel that every inch of his skin was being gnawed away. It was extremely painful. Xiao Hei, what are you doing? Why is it so painful? Zhuowen's eyes were filled with fear. The pain made him want to commit suicide. Bear with it for a while longer. It'll be over soon, Xiao Hei's voice slowly sounded. Zhuowen could only grit his teeth and endure. He let out a roar that didn't sound like a human's voice. It sounded extremely chilling and terrifying. With the passage of time, the ink-black luster around Zhuowen's body gradually faded away, and the extreme pain also gradually receded like the tide. When Zhuowen looked at his own body, he couldn't help but gasp. At this moment, his entire body had changed drastically. His hands and feet were covered with ink-black scales. Traces of cold light were emitted from the scales. On his elbows and knees, there was a black spike growing out of each of them. In addition to his elbows and knees, Zhuowen's back also had ferocious bone spikes. It looked extremely horrifying. Moreover, Zhuowen also realized that he had a huge dragon tail on his back. He looked like a dragon man and not a normal human. Is this what you meant by partial realization? Looking at the huge changes in his body, Zhuowen was first surprised. Then, he calmed down. He kind of understood what Xiao Hei meant by partial realization. As it couldn't be fully realized, a part of the characteristics of the armor soul would be attached to the host. It would allow the host and the armor soul to become one. This was the principle behind the increase in combat power. Zhuowen could clearly feel that after a part of Xiao Hei's materialization had attached itself to his body, his strength had become many times stronger than before. In your current state as a dragon man, whether it's in terms of sensitivity, speed, or strength, they have far surpassed the Xuanzuan realm. Even a supreme being is no match for you. If you use your trump card, you can actually fight a golden supreme being. You're tuning in to the Celestial War YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.